Thank you for your
Good evening. It's the Conservation Commission. We're a little late because of technical difficulties, but we're on now. I'd like to do a little ad for Waters Farm, which is coming up on the 13th and 14th. As most of you know, Waters Farm was left to the town by Dorothea Waters Moran, and there's a 99-year lease to Waters Farm Incorporated, which was done in about 10 years ago. The Waters Farm Incorporated does Waters Farm Days as a way to get money to keep the farm going and do repairs and things like that. So it's coming up on the 13th and 14th, and so bring your family, come and have apple crisp and have a good time. Members on the committee may not know that we used to go to every meeting, and then when I came on, I go to Waters Farm meetings anyway, so they stopped going. But if I'm not here, then one of you can go to the meetings. So the Conservation Commission has the oversight of Waters Farm, so I just wanted to explain that. Our first agenda issue is 1 Smith Road. The Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018 at 7 p.m. It's now 7:15 at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Uxbridge Road, Sutton, Mass. Purpose of this hearing is to review a notice of intent submitted to the Conservation Commission by Stephen Benincasa, Worcester, Mass. Project consists of an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for Stephen Benincasa on map 25, parcels 46 on 1 Smith Road, Sutton, Mass. This notice is publicized in accordance with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, commonly known as the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Wetlands Protection Bylaw. We have a few housekeeping items here. Mr. Murphy, I see we have your resume on file, and I think you just gave the abutters notices to Wanda. And your fees have been paid, and since it's an ANRAD, you're not in front of any other boards, are you?
Not at this time.
Not at this time?
We have done perk tests on the property. They're on record with the Board of Health.
Okay, all right, would you like to describe the project here, or the delineation?
Yeah, first of all, my name is Bob Murphy, Murphy Associates Environmental Consultants. I'm representing Steve Benincasa, Stage 1 investors. The property is located right across from Stone School Road, where it intersects with Smith Road. It takes a right turn, a 90-degree turn, when it meets Smith Road. And as you can see here on the screen, the heavy blue line, the property is presently undeveloped. There was a house, there's an existing foundation, what it appears to have been an old septic system, a pit or a cesspool on the site. That's still there, but it's pretty well destroyed. If you look at this plan here, you see kind of going across the property, there's a gas main installed on the site, runs through the property, and it pretty much runs through the wetlands. It doesn't, when they installed it, they just installed it right in the wetlands. And what that did was it impacted the wetlands in a way where the water tends to follow the trenches where the gas main was located. That whole area that's going across, that's wet, and there's a gas main in there. There's just to the left of the property, or the west, high-tension electric transmission lines, and they also pass through the wetlands. The other side, you see the heavy white area, that's the town landfill area. If anyone's familiar with going to the landfill, you drive right past this site on your way to the landfill. It's coming from the north down Stone School Road. It's pretty much completely overgrown with hardwoods, even in the wetland area. It's a very sandy soil. The reason the gravel, the landfill is there because it's, the whole area is gravel, sand and gravel, and very well drained soil. So you have, in the summer, there's no water on the site at all. There's no water in the wetlands. It drains. There is subsurface water passing through. So what you get is mainly hardwoods, red oak, red maple. It's not really a swampy type of situation until you get to the very lower property line. Again, where the gas main went through. The gas main, the installation of the gas main altered the entire wetland area. The water just follows the trenches, goes to the southeast. Where, at this point, the applicant would like to have the wetland line verified so that they could continue to proceed. The lot, pretty much, the area is zoned for single-family housing, so they'd like to put a single-family house in there. But at this point, the first thing we do is do perk tests to be sure. We found gravel, very deep groundwater on the upland side. Evidence of where the house had been and the cesspool. So we basically worked around the idea of putting the house where the existing house was and the septic system where the cesspool was. So, we can meet all the Title V requirements, again, following the line that we have now. But that's pretty much it. We're at a point where we felt that it would behoove us to, do an ANRAD in this situation, just to be sure. And the main reason being is that the wetland was disturbed by the gas main and it impacted it. That's pretty much it.
Hey, Brandon?
Bottom line is this application doesn't have a file number from DEP yet, so can't be closed out.
Which was the one that had no comments? That wasn't Smith Road?
Yeah, I have it open right here, let's see. So you go to the website to get the number, it doesn't have a number yet, and there are no comments. It's as if
Oh, I see.
they didn't get it. You might wanna follow up with them, Bob.
Yeah.
So I will go out there to verify.
The cards I gave you?
And this should be wrapped up by the next
Right
meeting.
there, and then you wanna make a copy of it?
I have a green card from DEP, so I know they got it.
So they got it, yeah.
Doesn't surprise me they're slow, but they definitely,
And I
Well,
contacted them also.
they received.
You got three in front of you that got numbers.
Yeah.
You're this one right here.
Yeah, an ANRAD shouldn't have been that hard to figure out, but they did receive it, but it doesn't surprise me, because lately they've been losing them, so I will follow up with that.
Okay.
So you want to continue to, when did this, we got September over there.
September, it's October 17th, I believe.
October 17th, we'll do, 7:30.
Make a motion to continue to October 17th at 7:30.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We will see you in October 17th.
Thank you, 7:30. And I will follow up tomorrow, find out where it went. Okay, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Oops. Put this aside.
Okay, this one here,
Moving right along.
what's going on now? This is the old file if you need it.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is 7:15, it's now 7:22. 31 Drive, the Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018, at 7:22 at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Exeter Road, Sutton, Mass. Purpose of this hearing is to review a notice of intent submitted to the Conservation Commission by Sharon Reardon, Sutton, Mass. Project consists of driveway repair with riprap, swale drainage, and stilling basin on map 15, parcel 46, on 30 Horn Drive, Sutton, Mass. This notice is publicized in accordance with the provisions of General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, commonly known as the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Wetlands Protection Bylaw.
I'll be recusing myself from this one. as a
Okay.
abutter.
We have your resume on file.
You have resumes from Gary and Helen, not mine particularly.
Could we have yours too, when,
I can forward it, yes.
yes, forward it to Wanda. There's a note here, the plan needs an engineer stamp.
Yes, and I have copies to give to Brandon.
Okay, and the fees have been paid. You have anything else with any other boards, the Board of Health, Planning, or the Appeal Board?
No.
Okay, the floor is yours.
My name is Dan Hazen. I'm with Gary and Haldon, represent Sharon Reardon. Currently, well, the property sits just south of Lake Singletary. Currently, water runs down Horn Drive, which is a private way, gravel road, and then some of it runs down their driveway, which is also a private, it's a paper street, it's not constructed, but it's a gravel driveway at this point. They're also getting runoff from the abutting property across their driveway, which runs down. During heavy rains, what's been happening is the gravel from the water running down is creating a lot of hills and valleys and eroding the driveway considerably. It's now getting to the point where it's getting down to the hard pan underneath the gravel. During the heavy rains, their garage, which is located in this area right here, actually gets flooded. The water, once it runs down, it runs across the back of or just to the right of the property, across their tight tank, and then down along the property line, creating all sorts of more erosion, which then goes out and into Lake Singletary. They've been trying to put different material out, boards, things like that, to divert the water away from their garage, but ultimately what they would like to do is pave this from the intersection up at Horn Drive with a 10-foot wide, basically driveway, pitching it back towards the south side, which will have a crushed stone subdrain, approximately 2 foot wide, 3 foot deep, with crushed stone with a perforated pipe at the bottom. Paving it up to just past the garage, and then having a riprap stone swale, which runs down to a stilling basin at the bottom here. The swale's about 90 feet long, and it has check dams along the way to slow down the water, help any suspended solids that may be in there drop out. And then at the basin at the bottom, this allows for infiltration during the smaller storms. It allows for the water during the larger storms to settle out any additional total suspended solids. And then eventually, once that's filled up, it's very shallow, it's only about a foot deep, just enough to basically create a level spreader, so to speak. It'll overflow and then go where it's been going into Lake Singletary. We believe this is going to eliminate a lot of the erosion that's been going into the lake. It also protects their tight tank from any rainwater that could get in. I mean, it's a concrete tank with a concrete cover. They're not waterproof covers. They have to get it pumped out every couple of months, just on the normal use. Any water that gets into it is just an added expense, plus it dilutes the effluent, which causes a problem, not a problem at the plant, but we're proposing silt fence and hay bales for
No,
erosion
no,
control.
no, no hay bales,
No hay bales?
no,
Straw wattles?
yes, 100% biodegradable 12-inch. So you need that on the plan.
12 inch, 100%.
No plastic mesh. By the way, I apologize, I didn't see that the abutters notices were checked off, wasn't checked off here. Have you passed in the abutters notices?
They were notified. I do not have the green cards with me tonight.
That's administratively incomplete then.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, you wanna,
Can I finish and continue?
you can,
There's no list of abutters?
There's
he-
a list,
Oh.
you're supposed to notify the butters and give the green cards as proof that the butters were notified.
So I don't think we can continue with a public hearing, right?
Yes, well,
Technically, no.
Because then nobody's
Yeah,
notified and
right.
they didn't have the right to be here. I just, I thought without that you couldn't.
Excuse me, I know notices went out, I got one. and
well, they have to,
Oh, okay,
they have to get them
Gotcha.
back and turn them in.
I got you.
You could probably, finish what you're doing, and then, you'll have to come back and do it over again when you get the
Okay.
abutters notices.
So, well, straw wattles, 12-inch straw wattles and silt fence around. I'll adjust the plan when I come back for that.
And so have that detail on the plan.
Mhm. I guess at this point, I would ask the commission if they have any questions or comments on this, so that when I come back at the next meeting, after I get the green cards, that
I'm not sure we can do that either,
I'll
so,
have to re-notify.
yeah.
So,
Well, you
don't
won't
have
have
to
to
re-notify.
re-notify, you'll just have to bring the green cards as proof that they got their notices.
Right, there's the green cards with the return receipts.
yeah,
And sometimes you don't get all those back, but you have the little white receipts that you get right away. Those at least need to be submitted as proof that the butters were notified.
But can we continue this without, is it a continue or is
Yes.
it reopen?
the receipts.
I don't have them with me.
We'll con-
Just continue it. It's,
It's pretty. You wanna continue?
Yeah.
Make a motion to continue too.
Just one question. So if you know you have them all, and you'll be able to prove that everybody was notified, then I think it would be okay, because that's what we need proof of, right?
Right.
I can have the cards.
So as long as you're
Tomorrow.
confident, otherwise I think then we'd have to start all over again. If the people
That's why I
weren't
didn't know if I
notified.
could continue it, yeah.
Just didn't mean to stop anybody, but it'd be nice to finish it if we could.
I know they went out, it's just.
Well, this lady said she received one, so,
No, that's why I.
But-
We
said
believe they
maybe-
went out, it just,
yeah, we
I
just
don't
need
have-
proof,
right.
yeah.
I can bring them tomorrow to the office if it's just a,
Right, is it Brandon?
It's an embarrassing situation.
yes, very much.
You don't wanna stop the motion that's going on. If you really wanted to, you could stop it right now. I suppose you can, if you want to, you can also try to go on the honor system, and hopefully everything is up and up. And next time, everything will be taken care of.
so I have a question, if we did approve, could we make a motion to approve with the
I would not
condition?
make a motion to approve anything tonight.
I need to revise the plan
Oh,
anyways
okay.
for the
Yeah.
wattles and,
So that's why I thought we were continuing, I mean, I'm happy to listen to more, personally.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's right and what's wrong.
Let's fish everything out of mine.
It's part of the administrative completeness checklist. You're required to do a couple things. Notify all your butters, return receipt, certified mail, and bring that with you to the meeting as proof that you've done that. I've even seen towns go through them one by one, check off all the butters to make sure that absolutely everyone was notified before they open the hearing. And you're supposed to put a legal ad in the newspaper. Wanda takes care of that, so I'm not worried about that. But it's a little, unusual to continue on, but I suppose that if this has been done and this is honor system, then we can try it. And if anyone complains, then they'll have a legitimate complaint. But if they don't, then no harm, no foul.
Yes.
Fine with me.
Okay, why don't you continue, and then when the abutters knows as the proof comes in, if there are other people here and you need to go back and revise or, you know, rehash it, then you can.
So, we've submitted hydrologic calculations showing that, pre-development and post-development rates with the 10-foot wide driveway, through the riprap and the check dams, and the basin at the bottom shows no increase in the 2, 10, 50-year storm. The riprap has been sized to avoid any motion by it. We've learned with check dams and riprap swales that the riprap, you know, size it properly so that we don't have issues further down the road. So basically, we believe this is going to improve the situation that's out there right now by eliminating the erosion that's going into the lake, along with the flooding of the garage, being able to regrade it and still provide adequate access for the people that live there.
Okay. I'm gonna step back a minute. I don't think you asked the I don't know if I probably missed the question. Is this in the planning board for the paving? Is there any need for that?
No, it's all part of it.
Okay, so you've done your own set of stormwater drainage calculations.
Correct.
So I'm not a PE, so I'm not qualified to review that work on an even footing. So the question goes to the commission, just as a general question. Is the commission, because this is a project that the stormwater standards are applicable to?
No, because it's a single family house under the, I mean, it's not new development.
So are you calling this section of the road a driveway instead of a road?
It is a driveway.
Okay, so you're
It's
calling
10
it a
feet
driveway,
wide,
so that
so
changes,
it's
I think.
right.
I was thinking of it more as a road.
No, it's accessing, there's one house and then there's a cottage just past it. It's,
Right.
and that's being only 10 feet wide, I wouldn't,
Okay, so we're talking about a really big driveway.
10 feet wide, or just very long?
Very, very long, it's wide, it's got a lot of fetch to it, right?
It's,
Enough for you to do some drainage calcs.
well, we did the drainage calcs to be able to check the velocity of the water entering the riprap swale so that we could size the rock appropriately.
Right, so the question goes to the commission. Even though this is a single-family house, the bylaw allows for the commission to require a third-party engineering review if you so choose. So you have that option if you're not comfortable, just blindly accepting the calculations. Again, that's not my thing. It's about the only thing I don't do.
So Graves would be the one to
If you
review
feel,
it.
if the commission feels the need, you have that option under the bylaw. Okay? Other than that, I want to point out that there is a good deal of erosion coming down the road. There's a pretty good gully right through the middle, and the sediment is piling up in front of the house. I saw that some of the water is actually continuing on, going down Andy DeWolf's gravel drive. Am I right, Andy?
Yes, sir.
Some of it's going down into there. So that's not good. The area where the drainage swale is proposed is lawn, or, you know, they got that tight tank right there. With the exception of the very bottom, where there is a big clump of sweet pepper bush. Is that clump of sweet pepper bush coming out?
Yeah,
Is it,
assuming that we would have it ripped out.
Excuse me, who are you? Could you stand up and state your name and address?
Keith Reardon, my mother's property, 30 Horn Drive. When they do the work, that bush is gonna get, the swale has to go right over it.
Right. Okay, so I also noticed that there's a roof drain leader going into that clump. So what's gonna happen to the roof drain leader? Cause right, at the moment, you'd be going right through it, and then you'd have to, like, probably route the roof drain into the swale.
We could do that, that wouldn't be a difficult thing when they're out there constructing this.
And how many feet away is the end of the stilling basin? How close are you to the water?
It's about 18 feet.
About 18 feet, okay. Commission has a policy with new disturbance, to prefer to keep it 25 feet away. It's not set in stone. But that's the general policy. So my question is there any way to shorten it at all? Or does that just not work engineering-wise?
The only thing with that was the stairs to the deck. I was trying to keep it as far away from the stairs as possible. I could shorten it up, I mean, it'd be 7 feet, so it would bring it up
Closer to the stairs.
closer to the stairs. I don't have a scale to actually figure it, but.
And there's a little bit of lawn between the stilling basin and the retaining wall. Another thing that the commission does on a fairly regular basis is to require buffer plantings to increase the ability of the area to stabilize and add water quality benefit. Are there any objections to that, and if so, what would they be?
I'd push that back to the client and ask them if they would.
It's right here.
um,
Sharon Reed, 30 Horn Drive. I have no problem with adding bushes, that fuzzy grass, blueberry bush, laurel, whatever, that is acceptable near a lake. If I have to put in, other myrtle or ferns or whatever, can do that.
Might be, there are rain gardens that have plants that are,
Also that,
Yeah.
yes. I'm not familiar with the rain gardens, but I do know that the plants I suggested are all conducive to by the lake and helps with all of that. I used to live by a lake years ago.
And as a general question, you have this as a riprap. Does the engineering just not work for a grass swale?
It's kind of steep. There's a 12-foot grade difference between the front and the back. And with the amount of water that does go down there, coming off of Horn Drive and also off of the property across the street, on the plan it looks large, but it's only gonna be about 6 feet wide. So it's narrow so that we can, if we went wider, we could go with a grass swale because the water's spread out more over it.
It's really tight.
Right,
Yeah.
we're really in a very small area to work with. So by making it narrower, the water gets deeper and it runs a little faster. So by using riprap, it's able to keep the erosion down.
Any long-term operations maintenance plan associated with this?
Other than standard mowing and if there's,
Mowing in the
riprap swale.
riprap?
well, I mean, as far as weeding and keeping things out of it, that, they live right there, it would be more as a aesthetics. So,
What happens if the stilling basin's fills up with road sand eventually? Who's gonna be responsible for cleaning that out?
the homeowner.
And that's considerations for conditions on special condition, I'd say. I'll kick it back to you.
Bob, have any comments?
I think in general, aside from helping the homeowner out, it's helping the lake out because it's controlling the water, filtering the water going to the lake. So it's a good thing all the way around. In the past, the 25-foot buffer zone in an area that's already disturbed, we have in the past let that go. It's on the new construction primarily, we're concerned about it. The riprap is sized large enough. 12-inch minimum thickness is gonna be one stone high in a lot of cases, I would think, with 75-pound rocks. But that's all right, because you got fabric underneath of it, so it's gonna, the only thing I'd like to, and I don't know how you do it. Basically, you got a level spreader coming off your detention pond going towards your water. And all of this effort is gonna be for naught if the water gets channelized as it's coming out of the basin heading into the lake. So I don't know what you do to try to,
Right, that, thank you, that's another question, because the grades here, it's pretty flat with elevation in 560 just below the Stilling Basin, and that bleeds into Mr. DeWolf's land too, so if the water ends up going over the top of the Stilling Basin, are you gonna be guaranteed that it's not gonna be flooding out the neighbor, Mr. DeWolf?
We could put an earthen berm across along the side to make sure that the water's diverted towards, stays on the property before it reaches the,
If I could speak on that real quick.
State your name, even though.
26 One Drive. That would have to be a lot of water to come up on my property, because it is, we're raised by at least 6 inches there, so as long as the grade doesn't get raised on your side, I think it'll be fine.
we're not touching anything.
Yeah, as it is, I think it'll be fine.
as I say, I don't know what you do about trying to make sure that's a level spreader to the water. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. I don't know how to do that offhand, without spreading it out into 6 different small channels or something, but it's almost all for naught if you get that volume of water down there, and she spills over and confines herself into a 1-foot wide trough going to the lake. From a maintenance standpoint in the future versus, as well as erosion, but just a constant maintenance problem if,
You could put a pressure treated, like, a lot
well,
of times
it's
what we
once it
do
gets
is,
over the, I agree with you, you could put pressure treat as a level spreader in the dam,
right,
but once the water leaves that level spreader,
mm,
you gotta keep it spread out all the way to the lake versus channelizing, even though it's only 20 or 25 feet to the lake.
I mean, right now, it's fairly well vegetated,
It just-
which would minimize any erosion.
I'm just suggesting something to think about. I don't know what you're gonna do to solve that problem, but
Right.
it's a potential problem in the future for.
Yeah, we don't wanna rip wrap all the way out to the water.
I don't want you
because,
to either.
Right,
I don't want you to either,
um,
but you just gotta be careful about that. I would think the channelization from there to the lake, you're gonna have erosion.
right,
Yeah,
the only
maintenance
other thing
problem.
would be like a turf reinforcing mat that I could think of that would be,
Yeah. I agree with you,
so.
but that entails just regrading and putting that in that area,
Right.
which would then allow a more consistent flow of water over there that would solve the problems all the way around, and I think ultimately make a better job for the homeowner, but, and protect the lake, obviously.
Do you have an opinion about Graves?
About what?
Graves with a peer review?
No, it's not necessary.
Mike?
Don't wanna assume, but you're gonna build the riprap swale and all this infrastructure before we pave, correct?
Yes,
That
yeah,
condition.
to work their way out,
And
basically.
then, it's just been my experience on these steeper lots, especially where you're gonna make a gully. So, at the silt fence at the end of this, I have seen that just the silt fence with the sock isn't enough. Cause you get a high flow of water, it blows right through that fence, even if it's, I don't know if there's anything in just the very end of it that you can put on the back side of the silt fence, as hay bale's not allowed to be used, cause they're a lot stronger.
Straw's fine.
So,
Unless you wanna put the mulch, and then that's
Oh, the
much
compost
more
side.
I don't know if it's
compost side.
tall enough, so the
You
reason
could-
I
you could
think-
do a tri- you
and I
could
don't
do a
need a
tri-
lot of them, just a few at the concentrated area at the end of this.
You could do a pyramid.
Kind of horseshoe around with the
I
strawberries.
don't want a lot, it seems to always
Well, you-
find itself the one spot in the fence where it knocks the
Yeah,
fence over and
You're right,
everything goes
sometimes
through it.
too, it could build up behind and then it just, because the silt fence is properly towed in, silt fence does not let
Correct.
water through.
Correct.
So it builds up and then it actually goes around, it could, that could cause problems, so I get,
So
I
it
get
would be
it.
my opinion, if we're showing a silt fence line all the way up to the street, right? Is that what all this X, right?
Yes.
So I'd rather see black silt fence most of the way down with no sock, because it's right in the, it's gonna get destroyed as soon as they dig, so it'll defeat the purpose of having it there. If it was my opinion would be, is to really protect the end of this, do the silk fence backed up with hay bales, because that's where this fence will fail. I've seen it time and time again.
We don't use hay bales because they bring in seeds.
I'm sorry, straw.
Straw.
Didn't mean to say hay bale, straw bale.
I'll educate you, yes.
Double
Thank you,
staked
thank you.
straw bales.
And I don't think we need to make necessarily a whole horseshoe, just the end of it. Even if it was 6 or 8 hay bales in the area that's gonna,
I understand.
straw bales. It's farm town, right?
We'll just call them bales.
That just would be my opinion. I do a lot of construction on similar things like this on the lake, and I just find myself fixing that fence every time it rains, and when we take a couple straw bales, it seems to stop it. In addition to those few things, it's, when it rains heavy and you don't have to go out there and fix it, you'll be glad you put a few hay bales.
Straw bales.
Straw bales. So just to phase it, make sure that gets done in a few straw bales at the end would be my only.
Thank you.
I don't think it needs an engineer as well.
Bill?
I like it all. The only concern I have is we just trying to stick with this 25-foot. Because I know the Sutton Police Station.
Yeah, but we agreed last meeting that next to the lake where it's already a vegetated area that's going to the lake, to work within that 25 foot has been allowed.
We did? I don't remember that. I mean, it's already disturbed, and it's gonna be a heck of a lot better when this is done, so I think it looks great, and I don't think we need an engineer review.
The only thing that I was thinking of, you said that up here, you were gonna direct the water onto somebody else's property, so,
No.
Swale.
Any water that comes down off the property would be collected into the swale. and down
Okay.
into-
all right, I
So-
just, when you first said it, I thought it was somebody else's property.
No, we're collecting everyone else's water. and
Taking care of it.
Take some from my property, too. So you would like to continue to?
Next meeting?
Yes.
October 17th at
7:45?
7:45.
And I will have it
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Get in touch with me.
All those in
We'll
favor?
work it out.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
October 17th?
One question, are you discussing the solar farm?
Yes.
We complain about these chairs, she's sitting down.
Wait a minute, those aren't his green cards, are they? Hmm? He didn't bring them in.
I'm recusing for the Manchog Pond.
Okay, this is a continuation from 9/19/18 on Manchog Pond Aquatic Treatment Program. Andy?
Make a motion to open,
No?
no, what are we doing?
To waive the
Oh,
reading?
to waive the reading for Manchog Pond Aquatic Treatment.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is anyone here for Manchog Pond?
Hi, my name's Dave Schmidt, I'm president of the Manchog Pond Foundation, 48 Bigelow Road, Douglas, Mass. I'm here tonight with one of our board director members, Bill Langlois, and board of director corresponding secretary, Phil Charpentier.
I'm also here in support, Jessica Lemack, 3 Barrel Road.
And we're here to represent the foundation in this today. Phyllis will be our point person tonight if you have any questions. Between the 3 of us, we'll try to get through this.
Okay, we did receive something from Mr. Zisk from Douglas saying that any special conditions they would go along with the same special conditions, but it took a long time to get that information.
Well, I
Randy?
got the regular order conditions, I don't know, they had a reference to special conditions, but there was nothing attached to the email for special conditions.
No, they had no special conditions, but they would go with the same, any that we had, they would do the same ones. That was what I understood it to be.
Okay. So how about tonight, we spell out what the special conditions should be,
Okay.
okay? Mike was not around for the beginning of this. You familiar with the file?
No, just a little bit the last meeting that we were at.
He
I'm
can't
not.
vote on it anyway.
Right,
Okay, yeah, no, I'm not familiar with it.
so we got three votes.
We have a
Got three.
quorum with the three of us, yes.
All right, so some of the things that are being talked about were notifying the town at least 48 hours before any treatment is done, okay, as a special condition. That the area is clearly marked, okay? We talked about herbicide treatment being the last ditch form, like the physical drawdown of the lake is the first line of defense. It doesn't require chemicals, right? And my suggestion is is the rule curve still in place?
From DEP.
From DEP from 10 years ago, right?
Yes, it's still in.
Right, so my suggestion is to, in the special conditions, make a reference to the rule curve, which is stated in that old file number. I'm not gonna think of it off the top of my head, but that the lake is, levels are to be operated per the rule curve, which is part of keeping the invasive plants low, right? Any objections to that? Right. So, and, you know, the work has to be done by a licensed professional. Notify 48 hours ahead of time, mark off the areas that are being done. I forget if the pond has a lake management plan. Long-term lake management plan, do you have one of those in place?
We don't have a long-term management plan. We did, put together a watershed survey, and we had the 319 grants, which did extensive work, and we have Solitude's management plan,
Right,
which is a toolbox of options for us.
right. Is Solitude doing plant surveys every year?
No, we've been contracting, each year. We make that decision ourselves as a board of directors, and we have our own team that was trained by their, one of their companies, Lycott Environmental, years ago.
Yes,
So surveys are done annually,
they are done.
yes.
So there would be a yearly mapping of where the hotspot areas would be for treatment, right?
Yes, we have a 47-point grid, which we survey every year. We have two teams that go out north end of the lake, south end of the lake.
Mhm.
We've identified over 25 species of plants, two being invasives.
Two of them are invasives,
Yes.
which are what the Myriophyllum, the
Fanwort and the variable milfoil.
milfoil.
So, survey was done by Solitude last year. They did a follow-up this year, and then our teams went out, the end of August and did a survey.
And Solitude does do a littoral survey too before any treatment
Mhm.
is implemented.
Does the commission see any value of receiving those yearly reports on the, where, these invasive species might be?
I think it would be a good idea, so we would have a record of what was done in case there was ever any
That's what
question.
that's kind of what I was thinking, along the lines I was thinking.
I would think it would be pretty easiest just to email us a copy of
Yes.
the report. That would be a special condition.
Those are the special conditions I can think of, unless you have anything else that concerns you.
Other than the treatment
special.
Trigger.
So 48-hour lead time. Mark, receive yearly vegetative studies, what do they call them? What?
Solitude report,
Yeah. Well,
Well, it's
the
not-
company might change.
yeah.
So vegetation surveys,
Aquatic plant survey.
aquatic plant, yeah.
Is what we usually call it.
So 1, 2, 3, those are the, it's really, and the big one, that the first line of defense shall continue to be managing the lake levels per the rule curve, per the old order.
And report after they do whatever they do, explaining what they did do. Because they've got several things, as I understand, you can dive for the stuff, you can do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So along with identifying the areas of hotspots, what in fact did you do to combat it? Just from the record again, so that
Yeah.
Everybody knows it's a public record that this chemical was put in, or that chemical was put in, or no chemical was
dive
put in, and
team
the
went
divers
out.
took it out. It's
Right.
just,
Just as a point of information, the drawdown approaches a depth of 4.5 or 5 feet. Any depth beyond that really doesn't have any impact.
Well,
Understood.
that's been for the last
Understood.
3 years, but we have gone considerably deeper in pastures. So,
So
you
one
know,
of the areas
that's
we're
not under our
most
control,
concerned
though.
about, from 5 feet out to the area where the plants don't have enough sunlight really to flourish.
And that's,
5 to 10 feet.
that's consistent with the rule curve?
That really has nothing, I don't think, Phyllis, that's,
but we don't have control over the drawdown,
No.
so we shouldn't, we wanna continue
Still
with the
highway.
drawdown.
Well, it's the
by
town in
rule
charge of
curve.
the drawdown.
The DPW is in charge of the drawdown, but I'm not really sure if they understand the rule curve, and I don't know if,
They have been following, Columbus Day, we start our winter drawdown,
Mhm.
and by our DEP superseding order of condition, we're refilling by April 1. We have a cold water fishery that we need connectivity with.
That's right.
We have fisheries all along the shore that we need in coves, wetlands that need to be moist, or we'll get fish kill for sure, May and June. So they are following that.
But the rule curve-
There is opportunities to go deeper in the winter months.
the rule curve would control the level during the summer and so forth also.
Well, yes,
Yes.
and when there's a storm predicted, and how many slats you take out, and when do you put them back in, and,
Right, we'll open the low-level gate, but
Right.
the goal is to come up by April 1st, and everything's gradual so that,
So things don't get stranded and die.
Yes, yes, and it comes up April 1st, and it's maintained as close to full as they can, or a little bit over, and then the drawdown begins gradually, Columbus Day weekend. And they can't start it sooner because then, we have fanwood, which would, grow, increase, and we don't wanna do it faster because we don't wanna strand the mussels, the native mussels, or, turtles and frogs and all those good things. So DEP was also consulted in that whole development of that rule.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So you're saying you do have native mussels?
Yes,
So I'm gonna recommend we do something that Commission never does, which is check off shellfish on the protective interests.
Well, most of the ponds around do have native mussels, but anyway. I am not, well, I don't know what the DPW knows about the rule curve, so I don't know if it's just guys going out there and say, oh, the water's high, and pull out a couple of boards. So that's something you might want to look into to see if they understand.
we have a very good relationship with the DPW. They are there, weekly, if not daily.
Good.
And we've seen them actually on the weekend there, they're close by, and we've seen the truck at the dam if needed, before a storm event. Actually, with all the rain that we've had and runoff from the watershed, because that's how our lake is filled, by runoff and rain. They actually opened up the low-level gate, let quite a bit out because we were over full, and now they've closed it to bring that up to maintain until we're starting our drawdown. So, and when the town did assume ownership, all the reports from the past,
From interstate.
decades were transferred to the town. So as part of the due diligence, they have all the records, repair records, and they have, they actually are mandated twice, every 2 years to have the dam inspected and everything's reviewed.
I know people were complaining about Stevens Pond being too low.
Well, there's always a flow out of Manchog
Yeah.
and out of Stevens.
Yeah.
And that's for healthy fisheries downstream. And people see a flow from the gate, they get all panicky and nervous and they just don't understand, but.
And they call my office.
And they call your office and they call my home phone, and I don't know, Wanda, but I experience in the same week, I'll get a call that the lake is too high,
Yeah,
and I'll get a call the lake is too low.
Yeah.
So you just
Oh, and there's
talk
mud
to
in the
them and
water.
try to educate them, and we've found that the town, the actual caretaker of the dam, has a very good sense of,
what to do,
how,
yeah.
yes, what to do, whether it be a storm coming and it's raining, he can take it down as he needs it, so
Who
he
is
has
it?
a very good feel for it. It's both Matt Stencil and Lyman Rosebrook that take care of it. So it's the top 2 men,
Mhm.
and we also try to field, all the questions from the lake, and we work with the town manager, Jim Smith is great, Matt's great, and we can reach him at any time if there was ever a problem. So they are very open to our input.
Okay, so I have 5 special conditions. First is notify the commission 48 hours before work is to begin. The second is to visibly mark area or areas to be treated.
Two.
3, receive the yearly aquatic plant survey. Number 4, report after the work is done, what was used and where it was used. And number 5 is manage lake water levels per the 2008 rule curve. Continue to use it.
And a licensed professional.
And a licensed professional, all right, number 6.
And you mentioned herbicide as the last treatment, but
Right,
prioritize.
in the findings of fact section of the order, I'm gonna write that is the commission's decision that the management of the water levels is the first line of defense against invasive species, and that herbicides are to be used as a
Low priority.
low priority, but when it is used, is found to be necessary, which the commission has determined that the applicant has presented adequate evidence that it is necessary, that these special conditions be followed.
Okay, Andy.
Here we go, on the hot seat. Anybody from the audience?
I think they've already,
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye. Make a motion to issue the order of conditions for Manchog Pond aquatic treatment with the special conditions, with 6 special conditions. Number 1 being we're notified 48 hours ahead of time. Number 2, mark areas to be treated. Number 3, receive yearly vegetated, was it aquatic
Plant,
aquatic plant survey.
Yep.
Number 4, first line of defense is to be used as lake level, the rule curve. Second would be herbicide. Number 5, report what was used where in the lake. And number 6 is to use a licensed professional.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This worked out much better. What's that? It's good for 3 years.
I started right there.
Unlike,
And then jumped back to another one, so.
should ask, because they have the ability to make it 5 if they want. That would've been a lot easier.
But because
But that's right, you come back, right?
Technically,
It's
they
kind
have
of,
a
so you get
conflict.
extended
So
to
if I
another.
go to the meetings, that
In
means.
fact, they get extended to 5 years next time.
Oh, okay.
Remember that.
But no, if
Try
you go to
not
the
to-
lake meeting, you, no,
Yeah.
you're just done.
Well, I was starting Wonder Lake.
Can you send me
I was
those
involved
five, because,
I guess technically they're the applicants.
I got 'em, don't worry.
Yeah.
because I'm gonna need them.
See, Town of Sutton's
Yep.
here.
No problem.
Town of Sutton's
Sutton's
here.
actually the applicant, but the lake spearheaded it, because Sutton owns a dam, I guess that's how they do that.
Okay.
All right,
Right along.
I was wondering if anyone would object if we do the board business and then go back to the other two issues here?
No.
How about the minutes
Make
for,
a motion to accept the minutes of September 5th and September 19th, 2018.
No, wait a minute, no, because, we haven't finished the 19th, have we?
Aren't those
Did
the ones that
everybody
came
get 'em?
today?
yes, those
Did
are the
everybody
ones,
get 'em?
those are the ones that I sent to you today and you sent out to everybody else, yeah.
Okay, so that's all right?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yes?
Yes.
We have a planning board review for,
Oh, yeah, 188 and 199 Mendham Road, it was a chapter 61 land, that also has a dam on it. So the paperwork there, I think there's a picture of where it is. It's across from Pigeon Hill Cemetery.
okay, Kauzik's,
Gloria Walsh was the owner.
Cowsick across the street.
Oh, yeah, I don't know who lives in town, so.
anyone,
I thought this one's coming up. The guy who cut my hair 2 weeks ago told me about this property. His mother just passed away in the past year, would that be right?
A couple, about a month ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she lived in Shrewsbury.
Next to Pigeon Hill, Summit Pond.
so this is, do we wanna buy the land or not? It's,
There's two, let me bring it up so you can at least look at it.
It was in front of us before to have the dam fixed, because Office of Dam Safety
here.
made them fix it. But I think Joyce, you were probably on board.
So it's this one, and there was a dam repair project a number of years ago, Joyce might remember it, and it's this one as well. Both raw land by the woods.
18 acres, I think.
yes, well, 188 and 199 Mendon Road.
This is 188, I believe. This is 199, I wanna say. Let's see how good I am.
The guy that bought it, is he a developer? builder?
Nope. This is 199, this is 188.
So is this something we looked at before, or is this on?
So
This is all
So
new.
this is something that's coming up in front of us to, if we would wanna buy it or not?
No, well, yeah, if we wanna release it from 61A, if we have any objection to them releasing it
Oh,
from
okay.
61A.
And what's the
Or
price
if
of
they
the land?
wanna know if you think the town should buy it.
$550,000.
It says here, I don't know if it says here.
Yeah, I saw the PNS was for 550.
550, I believe.
Isn't there's a cemetery right
Mm-hmm,
there on the corner?
Pigeon Hill.
Yeah, right,
Right
it's
there
right next
somewhere.
door.
yeah, right next to it.
Right, but let's take a look at wetlands overlay, just the pond. Let's
Land
look
underwater.
at the soils.
That pond is all land underwater.
A lot of
Oh.
good soils. So
$5,300.
I predict,
It was 550, it was a $20,000
That's 550.
deposit, I believe.
$5,800.
Agreed. 5,000, yeah. That's what this says. Purchase price
Yeah.
is $5,800.
what?
I'm just saying what the P&S says right here in front of us.
You know, $5,800.
For both?
No.
No, I
Can I
read
get
some
Yeah.
five.
Wrong.
I can pull it up.
We got it right
It
here.
says right here, purchase price. The agreed purchase price for the premises is $5,800.
For who?
It says, so here at the beginning, it says the parties. Ellis Russell and Nancy Russell of 176 Mendon Road, hereafter called the buyer. And then-
Okay, they're abutters to this
I
property.
think that's the wrong paperwork.
I think it's wrong.
Oh, well, I can just tell you what, this is a purchase and sale agreement for George Kowzik.
So George Kelly's
The seller.
selling- He's not selling it.
It's the wrong property.
It's the wrong
Okay.
property.
Well, I'm just saying what this
Oh,
says.
yeah, no, I understand, I understand.
That's what
Just saying
came
it's-
up with it.
it's
Yeah,
wrong.
it's the wrong one. It was $550 if memory serves, and it was a
Right.
$20,000
Well,
deposit.
55, all right,
Yeah, that's
the town
one
should
idea.
think about that, if they could, I mean, that's, if.
I think when I
Would
saw
sell- would
this,
sell for
Yeah, no,
$500.
yeah.
You won't sell.
I think there's a
Yeah,
little
there is right
strip
here.
that I think this is,
Andy's got it.
Yeah.
yeah,
Purchase and sale agreement, line item number 2, purchase price. The purchase price for the property is $550,000 and 0 cents.
Maybe it was written
Payable
wrong.
as follows. The sum of $10,000 was paid upon execution and delivery of the offer to purchase. So they put 10,000 down. The sum of $530,000 due by wire transfer. There's another 10,000, in escrow. So it's 10, 10, and 530. So it's 550
Do
total.
you want your library there?
What's that?
Do you want your library there?
No, sell it. Be a nice house lot, some income for the town.
house lots are not income for the town. So,
To build
right.
the house there.
what?
Tax revenue.
It's gotta be more than one house lot for $550.
Town spends $1.25.
Really?
Mostly
It's
schools.
like 48 acres, 68 acres of land, I believe.
Not in our case.
Oh, is it? Yes, it's a big track, yeah.
Oh,
So-
and school.
We got open space, we got classrooms not being used, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's all moldy in there.
They're brand new, go ahead. Enough
No,
of this.
Are we being recorded?
Yes.
yeah. Okay, we don't have no objections from them taking it out of 61A.
No.
Guaranteed to see an application within a year. You bet.
No, that's not.
For subdivision?
Probably, there's enough room for, you could do a loop road right through.
Why do that? It's 18 acres, 2-acre zoning, and you got frontage.
It's
You
more
could
than
do a lot
18.
of
18 is
Form
on
A.
Whiteside.
250, 50, 250, 50, all the way down the
You
road.
do all, we make some really quick money on that.
Retreat lots, right?
Yeah, but
Every
if
other
you're
one.
2-acre
Is-
lots, you're in 18 acres, you ain't got much room.
But there's more than 18 acres, it's
Okay,
two
let's
lots.
move on here, gentlemen.
Sorry.
219 Manchog Road, Strassner, we have not done the site visit there yet. And did you say we were waiting for a letter, or we've received a letter?
Good question. Wanda, you have, did we receive a letter on this?
I have a thing here from Bob Murphy with the as-built plan.
Okay, so we have to do a site visit for Strassner for certificate of compliance. We need to go to the island when the water gets drawn down, or some other way you can get there.
Wait till it's drawn down.
And then certificate of compliance
Now,
for
what about 80 Worcester Providence?
80 Worcester Providence Turnpike. And I believe you wanted to speak on that?
Yes, I do. Or,
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I visited the Stilling Basin extension to the swale today, and I think that after the storms we've had in the last couple of weeks, it held up pretty good. Here's my concern, is that water was flowing out of the underground infiltration basin. And there's also water trickling down the hill from the grass swale fire. There's just water trickling down through the bottom of the stone, right underneath the check dams, filling up the Stilling Basin, and then going over the Stilling Basin and into the woods. It's all stable. It makes me wonder about what the new hydrologic dynamic is gonna be on the hill and going into the wetland. But it's stable, and it's probably the best you're gonna be able to get. So the only issues I think that are outstanding are, all the erosion controls need to be pulled. It's ready for that. And the second thing is the issue of the wetland replication, because don't forget, we still had a wetland replication there. And I'll leave it to you to take care of that.
I spoke to Art Allen tonight, and he will prepare a replication report and forward to the board.
Okay.
Or to you, whoever wants it.
Good. That's where we stand. I think that if we get this replication report pending Art's analysis, and the erosion controls get pulled and I can do an inspection, walkthrough, might, knock on wood, be ready 2 weeks.
I do believe Mr. McGovern asked for the maintenance logs for that
You're right.
unit, so
You're right.
I'd like to see that
We need to
happen.
get the maintenance logs.
Okay.
Thanks for reminding me.
So those three things, maintenance logs, replication, and, pull the,
Silt
water,
fence.
silt fence.
Throw the,
Silt fence all the way around?
oh yeah, it's all ready.
Okay.
Throw the stakes in the woods. Let them decompose. They're oak.
Today's wood is tomorrow's loam.
That's right.
Okay, replication logs, remove silt fence, and what was the third
So
one?
does that mean you wanna, yes,
Wetland replication.
I got that.
Maintenance logs
Oh, maintenance logs, yes.
for the infiltration
you
system.
have 80 up there? Yeah, she's got it right there, so you can sign that one too, I guess.
No, we're not, no,
Not yet?
no. We gotta wait for the maintenance logs,
Oh, okay.
remove the silt fence, and replication.
That's the lake,
Sign
that's what I'm
the
talking about.
Okay.
You got any better flavors?
Is this the man
That's Andy.
That's Andy.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Good night.
Have a good night.
We need an engineer's letter from Linda Nelson at 114 Manchog Road to do her certificate of compliance.
Does she know that, Wanda?
I was just
Yes.
there.
She does know that because, well, her order of condition, her certificate of compliance for the work she did a few years ago, that's what we need a letter from an engineer for.
Has she gotten a letter? Did we send her a letter that we needed it?
Yes, we did. That's why she's responded to us. It was one of those letters that Wanda and I sent out.
So
Excellent.
these letters are working to
They're
get
working
these
great.
open
Yes.
things closed
Mhm.
off.
For some of them.
Yeah.
I've sent out over 15.
Well, yeah, but we did 4 or 5 2 weeks ago, I
We
think.
did 7.
Yeah.
7? Okay, we did 7 2 weeks ago.
I believe we signed those plans before the meeting for 315 Central Turnpike, 7 Whitens Road, and, well, not 80.
All right, there should have been 5, yeah. Yeah, there's one there that wasn't.
We also sent a letter to 10 Partridge Hill asking when we could come and do the inspections,
I haven't had
for
a-
her to let us know since she had an issue before.
But we keep talking about this one, and I know we sent, I think, should we do something a little more formal so we can get
Well-
those signs up before?
We did, well, let's see if we get she just sent the letter out, what, the beginning of the week?
I thought we
Last
sent it
week?
out.
Well, there's 2 letters.
Oh, okay.
One came from the lawyer and wanted us to tell her where to put the signs, so we sent a letter asking when she could be there to meet us,
We haven't got.
We haven't
and
got
we
the
haven't got a
response.
response. If not, if we don't by the next meeting, we'll say we're gonna be there on certain date. and
Because
that'll
I'm sure
be it.
she'd like to close it out just as much as us.
So with John Burns,
Mhm.
because he needs a certificate for that particular one. Then he's going to close out all of that when he's finished with Hunter's Court.
The whole development.
Yeah.
He's just about done with that too.
Okay,
Just thinking of John Burns, did Mr. Woodward
Woodward.
have any update on that?
Haven't heard from him.
Okay.
Yeah, good time to check up.
I haven't been down there to see what happened during the recent storms, but 2 weeks ago when I was there after that storm, I had taken pictures and everything looked pretty good.
The riprap is
So-
working, or was working.
You know, usually this is a dry time of year when you can get down there to take that stuff out of the wetlands.
Yeah, it seems like the rains have come a little early this year.
Yeah, like from August 1st on.
It's been raining.
Mm.
We got a good stretch now, though, don't we? Think it's gonna be pretty good the next week or
Let's
so.
hope. As Waters Farm, unless the fields dry out, you can't park there.
Oh, is that why you did,
Mhm.
that's your comment about the water today?
Mm. Okay, we have on the agenda 7:45, it's now 8:20 something. Public hearing to discuss proposed rules and regulations for filing fees. The background of this is that previous to 2015 and the adoption of the bylaws, the filing fees were in the bylaws. They were removed from the bylaws to put into the rules and regulations so that we could adjust the fees if we needed to without having to go to town meeting and just have a public hearing. And I did some research on other towns and couldn't find out what Sutton's were, realized that they had never been put into the rules and regulations. So it was on the agenda tonight to discuss them. And I've given everybody the information about what they were in the past. And so
What were they in the past, just for the record? So we're-
Second sheet,
these,
second sheet.
I know, but I think should they be read in for what they were?
well, yes, but we can go one by one here. I don't know if we want to read the whole thing and then
No,
go back.
no, you're probably right, I just think we need something, so,
So people know.
homeowners and property owners and so on understand.
Bob?
What are these funds being used for? I haven't found any place in my readings to tell me specifically what these funds are used for.
These funds are used for supporting the wetland filing, for the application of the Wetlands Protection Act over and above the fees that are for the state, that they share with us.
Which means what? I don't know what that is.
Well, it costs,
What costs have we been incurring that we haven't been paying?
the costs of Wanda's salary was coming out of that account and everything.
According to your handbook and the homework assignment you gave us, that cost is supposed to be part of the town budget.
No,
Read
No.
Jesus,
it isn't supposed to be part of the town budget.
read your book.
I did.
I did too,
I've been doing
3
it for
times.
2 weeks.
And it says clearly in the book that the town budget is supposed to be providing that cost.
It says in the wetlands thing that they realized that the town, the part of the state fee that's shared by the town is not enough to support staff and so forth, and the wetland account can be used to buy property and, to add to our conservation land and things like that.
I don't feel that there's a clear definition of what this money, whatever money you're gonna appropriate, can be used for.
Well, if it,
And until such time there is such a clear definition, then I would be willing to discuss how you're gonna come up with the money.
well, what happens if it's not in this account is that it comes out of the general fund.
As it should.
No, because then everybody is paying for this out of our taxes instead of the people that are filing for having the work done, having to pay that.
That's the
I
way
have
it is.
Can I ask one question? So in my seminar last night, and I think that's what you're pulling up, because I can't remember it all, because it was a lot.
This is a lot, yeah.
But under the state regulations, they talked about different ways the town can generate money and what the uses are for. Is that what you're getting at? It sounded like it was spelled out through the state regulations.
There's 3 different accounts. One is the account, well, for the consultant, right? That's
Yep, a
50, that's
consultant account,
completely
yep.
separate, okay? That can only be used to pay professionals for the specific applications that the money's there for. And then you have the the Wetlands Protection Act account, which is the town's share of the state fee.
Yep.
Which is approximately half, okay? And that money, goes into the general fund.
No, that money
What doesn't?
doesn't go into the general fund, that's in the revolving account.
Right, the revolving account, but it can only be used for very specific uses, anything under the Conservation Commission Act. That's listed in the from the
Yeah, go ahead.
1950s, okay? But you can create a conservation fund from the money that you get from the bylaw to do things above and beyond what the Conservation Commission Act allows. And examples, permissible expenditures include, here's a list, preparing open space plans and maps, GIS expenses, vernal pool certification, recording of votes on land transfers, other types of expenses that are seldom foreseen and rarely within a commission's budget. So that gives you a lot of leeway to use that money. I've seen it used for paying legal counsel, which has been done in the past.
You can't, but according to what I've read, legal counsel is part of the town's responsibility.
If the town wants to.
Well, just like when Mike was on the zoning board didn't have to appropriate in their budget any cost for legal counsel. And there was
Correct.
quite often, you referred cases to legal counsel for their definition on a zoning issue. So, you know, the legal counsel represents the entire town. Each individual subcommittee in the town doesn't have to retain their own legal counsel or pay for it.
However, doesn't the Board of Selectmen have to authorize that money?
Yes.
They, in their budget for legal counsel, yes, they authorize a certain amount of money to be used for the legal counsel to represent the.
So there's a
town and the
chance-
board of Sutton.
I don't believe that's how, because just I was on ZBA for a long time, and I just think if we had asked, it was up to our board. If we decided that we felt we couldn't make a ruling without feedback from
Yeah,
town
but you
council.
weren't paying for it.
No, but I don't think the selectmen had to weigh in it. All that we
Oh, no, I
had to
agree.
do
They
as a
did not.
board, just ask, and
Correct.
then that would just happen.
And
The
does that
selectmen weighed
work
in
the
and
same way for
provided a budget at the
conservation?
beginning of the year.
So, this is kind of what we're trying to figure out. So, the little bit that I've had today to start to think about all this and the money and all the opportunities the town has and how to, and it got more confusing.
Yes, it
And more
has.
questions, and I would love to have lots of discussion about it. But someone has to know the rules, and that seminar last night, it sounded like the woman that talked had a good grasp of,
Do you remember who it was?
Michelle Gerard, Lindsay.
Yeah, Michelle Gerard.
Michelle, yeah.
she did a great job explaining, but I mean, Andy, you were there
Yeah.
too, and we went over a lot of things, and I didn't feel comfortable enough to tell you that I knew exactly what, but it sounded,
I've been through the
Professional.
same seminar, but it's been a while, and it's the thread.
so I
lose the
think,
thread.
Right now, the filing fee goes back to the general
let's
fund,
just
right?
get it clear.
No.
Someone-
These filing fees went into the wetlands account, and it's the revolving account.
So I think what Bob's saying, and the way she spoke, is the town has some financial responsibilities to the conservation board outside of what we charge. That's what I got out of that meeting last night. And that's not defined, that's where I'm not sure exactly how it all works. And I
Right.
think what Bob's trying to say is we have an avenue that generates money that goes back into the town fund. And on top of that, the town has some responsibility to pay for certain things. So now, is this $25 something in addition to the state regulations that's picked up in our bylaw that we have a right to charge
Yes.
a third cost? So it just helps me to understand it this way.
There-
So this cost that we're
Well,
talking
wait a
about,
second,
yep,
it's not, those charges are not part of the bylaw, correct? It's part of the regulations.
It would be, we took them out of the bylaw, and we were going to put them in the regulations, but we never had the meeting to put them back.
Thing, so it's not part of the town bylaw.
Discretionary.
Discretionary.
and it's not part of the state regulations. So
Right.
this is something,
It's-
us as a board, outside of everything, would make a decision to generate a fee. And then I think the question is what do we do with that fee?
Well, that's part of it, yes. First off, I think you have to define what you're gonna use the money for and have a clear definition of what you're gonna use the money for. Once you establish that, then you can start talking about how am I gonna get the money to accomplish this goal. But to stand around and figure out we're gonna collect all this money and not know what we're gonna use it for and say, well, we're gonna use it any way we wanna use it, I think is wrong. I think we have to define precisely what we're gonna use the money for, or what it can be used for. Once that is defined, so that everybody's in agreement with what it can be used for, then we can go about thinking about how we're gonna raise the money.
I went to Tim Harrison 2 weeks ago and talked to him about where this money went when they collected it before, and it went into the wetlands account, which is the revolving account. I kind of disagree that that's where it should go from what I was reading and all that. And every time they moved you from one section to another and you read it, you got more confused. But there was a section that said, oh, it's very confusing, go to, I don't know, some legal department or something. So I'd like to talk to Tim again and do some more investigation. So maybe we ought to defer this to another time till we get things straightened out.
And you should
And-
probably ask Tim to create me another account for
And-
that.
Excuse me for a second, but Tim may not be the last word on this, in that Tim is the town accountant and a very good accountant. But he certainly is not fully vested in knowing the rules and regulations, that the,
Well, he has to report and put the balances of these accounts into the annual report and so forth.
that's
So-
relatively easy to do without having a definition
Right.
or error.
But who would know what the definition?
Well, we
Is
can,
that town
But-
council?
Hold on,
No,
just so I can understand.
possibly
We're saying a
the,
regulation now.
possibly
Is that
the
something we
ones that
create
you
in-
two
as a board
listened
to-
to yesterday. I
Yes.
don't know if
Okay.
they are the ones that would be
So
able
that,
to.
wouldn't it be up to us to create a list of what we want the money for?
I
and
don't know
then-
if we can do that.
yeah,
Well, I'm just, then who does it? Then who
Well-
makes
That's what I'm
I
asking.
think it's laid out in that handbook. They talked about that MAC handbook had line items that you could use funding for.
I haven't been able to find it.
Can I tell you?
That's what I
I've
said last
done?
night when I was listening to the seminar, because they also said that all these filing fees could go directly into the conservation fund and nothing had to go into the general fund.
That's what I thought they said.
They
Yes.
said that word for
And you could use
word.
it to pay.
Can
Yeah,
I
you
give you
can-
an update on what I've done in the past?
yes.
I've purchased 3 printers, 2 computers, the laptop, all from the wetlands account.
Which I
And
don't
that's what
think is
came out of.
legally correct.
Yes,
It
it
is.
was.
It is,
It
because
was,
you
'cause
can
I
use
went
it to
through-
support the Wetlands
According
Act.
to what I've read in the
Wetlands.
book that you told us we had to read, and Andy apparently has read some of it also, it says that that kind of stuff is supposed to be provided by the town and not by the fees
That's
that
how
are
I thought I
charged.
read
Can
that.
use
Doesn't have
it to
to.
support anything that the staff needs to run this department.
So you wanna buy a GPS
Well,
unit,
that's what it just.
so you wanna buy a GPS unit, you could do that just because the bylaw.
I don't disagree with that,
The
because
the
that unit
one
is
that I gave
specific
you the
to
website
the
for.
effort, but a
Okay,
computer
so on there,
is not
that's-
Yeah.
So that's
specific
what, like a
to
handbook for us to kind of,
Yeah.
conservation.
Robert's Rules and Order. it's
Yeah.
not
That
a
computer-
Should buy it,
it's a
but,
guide.
yeah,
Did I-
I get what
The
you're saying.
printer is not specific. The printer is a
The concern I have is sitting on this board is I don't wanna say where something's supposed to go and be wrong, or anyone else shouldn't wanna be wrong.
Agreed.
Oh, I
If-
agree too.
I wonder if it's town council that tells us, or is it,
No, we can go to MACC and get the,
so MACC can.
Well, I think you ultimately could go to MATCC, but you also, you
Have it back?
have to make sure the town council agrees with it.
Right.
The last thing I wanna do is willy-nilly say that money goes in that account, and then 3 years from now find out we're wrong, and then we're getting sued, or we're getting.
So in the past, when we used town council, we would put something together and ask for a specific thing to the town council. So I think what Bob's saying, if we put something specific together, we have the help, cause that was one thing
With
they
the
kept
help of
saying.
MACC?
You could submit help from, and what we think is correct, and then the final blessing, you could do,
Right.
we could do town council to make sure legally.
But they did a whole section last night on financials.
Yeah.
okay, so I think we need to do some more research before we revisit this and set
Well-
more fees.
More
On that one.
research how, is my question.
Right.
Just as you pointed out, and I agree with you, when you read your handbook, it contradicts itself all the
Right.
way through. You can find places in there where it tells you that your filing fees have to be approved and authorized by the selectmen. Right? And now you're saying you.
No, to use them, it has to be approved by, it has to be released by the selectmen.
Why don't we figure out the question that we wanna ask, and we'll write it up and assign one of us to send the email to MACC and lay it out.
Does MACC offer the opportunity.
Yes.
If you're a paying member,
Yes, we are a paying member.
I think that's what.
But there's a difference between the conservation account that you just did and there's a municipal account. You're allowed to have a municipal account to supplement what you don't get in the filing fees from the state. And so, the thing is, like,
See, I don't want the conservation account filing fee to supplement the town budget, because I don't think that's the way it should be,
Right.
all right?
Yep.
Now, if you wanna earmark the fee, conservation fee, in line with what you put on the board there,
yeah,
and make it restrictive to that and not to printers and salaries and paper and stuff like that,
mm-hmm.
I think that's a real good starting point. Now, you can go from there.
well, we are an arm of the DEP. We're not really under the auspices of the town in a lot of respects. The only thing the selectmen have to do with the Conservation Commission is to appoint members, and that's it. We are not under the auspices of the town in other ways. We're an arm of the DEP.
So does that mean then a prudent town would charge us rent for using this room during this time?
Maybe.
And make it as a revenue source for the town?
No,
That-
but it,
that- it's a
On the
deal.
back of the half a dozen people that come in here and wanna put a deck on the side of their house or something?
Well-
Charge them several
It's a
thousand
deal
dollars?
made through the home rule portion of the Massachusetts Constitution.
so as, no, anyway.
Yeah.
So
I
we
think-
gotta-
here's
we
what
gotta do some research.
Here's the breakdown that I see. You gotta figure out what funds are associated with. So you have a fund associated with the fee that you get as part of the state filing fee. What can that money be used for? That has to be bullet pointed. What can that money be used for? And then you're gonna have a bylaw fee that you wish to use, right? That's gonna be separate.
The bylaw,
The commission has to spell out, bullet point, one by one, the things that it may be used for.
the
and it's-
bylaw fee goes into the general fund,
Why?
That doesn't make sense.
by law. The bylaw fee goes into the general fund.
And it's
But the
only
commission should have
$25.
100% control over that money.
Not the bylaw fee, but the WPA.
I thought the WPA fee went into the
Anything
general
over
fund.
25.
No, it
It's the
doesn't.
bylaw fee
It
that's
doesn't.
separate, that's to be used by the commission.
The bylaw,
That's the filing.
there's a
fee.
filing
You're
fee.
talking about the filing fee.
The bylaw fee is $25, it goes into the general fund.
And then
The
you're talking
filing fee. The filing fee is kind of what we were talking about here, but,
Which I've been putting in the wetlands account.
That's the state
because
fee
we
now that
didn't
we're
have
talking
another
about?
account.
so the state,
shares it with
state
the town.
collects a fee and it shares it with the town, but that's not enough to, they realized that it wasn't enough to support
printer, do
everything,
this, do
yeah,
that.
right,
Printers
so
aren't
you can do
responsible.
that.
You're not supposed to be buying a printer.
Well, we disagree
You're
about that.
You're supposed to be doing what Brandon put on the board.
No, that's a different account, that's not the wetlands account,
That's
that's
the
the
filing fee
conservation
account.
account, no. That's a different account.
So we need another account created by Tim
Well,
for this conservation filing fee.
right, so we have to get some,
We gotta get some answers.
we gotta get some answers about what all of these different accounts are and what you can use them for and what you can't, so. I will,
This would be a good thing to get from another town.
So sometimes we
not from another town,
ask other board, like, who wants to do
You don't
what?
wanna assume it's correct.
I will,
No,
I've
but.
been working
to
on it
compare
anyway.
what-
Yeah, you know what I mean, like if
He's
somebody
got
comes
it.
in,
Right.
and then you'll find out those 3 bullet points.
Yep,
some-
and I will,
You
And
think
that-
it's
and that's what-
confusing for
that-
you? You should see how I have to explain it
That's
to
what I
somebody.
can
It's not, if you just have to talk to the right person.
if
to
I
find
get
out
the
what
information, I will email it to people, but you cannot debate on anything with any serial emails or telephone calls. You can email factual material to everybody on the board, but that's it.
So you're gonna email that and then we can't,
We can't discuss it till we do it in a public meeting.
Understood, makes sense. Unless we have anything to add to it by email.
fact.
factual.
Factually only.
Right.
And please list your source.
Okay. I will do more
So we gonna
investigation.
continue that for 2
Well,
weeks? Do we
well-
need
So
more time?
sometimes it's helpful what other towns do, but I know me personally, I'd rather kind of go down the road Bob's saying, if we have a list of what we're trying to do, and then figure out a fund to make that happen.
Yeah.
Because just because another town does something, just for me,
Doesn't mean it's right.
doesn't mean it's right. I appreciate all this, but for me, I like Bob's thinking. Let's create a list, what it's for,
Right.
we like it, we send it to town council, find out it's legal, and then we can vote on it. Does that make sense? Is that what? Okay, I agree with that.
As far as I'm concerned right now, we can't even accept the land donation because there's not enough money in the till to pay for the legal part of it.
Right.
I agree.
All right, I should have read this,
Wouldn't that
Wanda was
be
saying.
nice to have.
Well, if we had enough money for closing costs on a free piece of land that somebody could write off, it would benefit them, it would benefit us,
Yeah,
but we
well,
can't do that right now.
Actually, that's a side point because we'll make this public. My family came in to offer 19.5 acres under the open space to the town of Sutton. Town of Sutton does not want to take any more land at this time.
Was that through planning or conservation?
I was told through planning that planning does not want it and that they, for liability reasons, and there might be other reasons, they don't want it. It's under the open space bylaws, so we have to.
But if we could have taken it probably if we.
Well, that's
if-
what we
Right.
wanted you to.
If we
We
had the
wanted-
money in the till for the legal fees, I think we could have taken it under conservation.
My understanding is the town didn't want that to happen.
Well, we're, again, kind of a separate entity from the town.
They dabbed into that a little bit
I was
last
gonna
night.
say, they, yes, I think. that
Some of these
they're onto
towns, like, I think they
Yeah.
brought up, what was it, Marion or Mattapoisett or one of those towns
Well,
down
they-
there, just
no.
took a piece.
Well-
It was a garbage piece, it's wetlands, it can't be used for development, but it had,
Well,
value.
in my case,
Town
it's-
of Dartmouth has an outstanding program for that. Mike O'Reilly is the agent down there. He's one of the top in the state, and he's an expert at all this stuff.
Well, mine is 19.5 acres, and we've now gone to Metacomet Land Trust as an alternative, and they've been very
Mhm.
good to work with. But my first choice sitting on this board, and the family land being in the family for a billion years, was to have the town of Sutton Conservation take it. And it's my understanding that the town does not want to take any more land. And
Well-
maybe I don't want to be speaking out of school or assuming, but
Well, how-
that's,
But the town is different from the Conservation
That's right.
Commission.
so I could come in tomorrow and say, I want to give you 19.5 acres of land.
That's
as
right.
long as you donate enough money to cover the closing costs, I think we could take it.
Well, that's to our right. We're talking about land going into a conservation restriction.
Open
That
space.
the Conservation Commission is the restriction holder. Means that the commission is responsible for making sure that that land stays as is.
Which is what we wanted. The whole reason my family came in front of this board was an open space development to protect the land.
Yeah.
And I know
But-
we're off subject here, but that
No,
was,
no, but
I think it's a good point to be brought up.
if there were any legal fees associated with it, then that could come out of the fees associated with the bylaw.
So that'd be one thing to put on Bob's list. Bob wants to know what the money could be used for. There's a big one in my eyes.
I agree with you.
We
That was on the list, that's what I think it should be used.
That's exactly what I think it should be used for.
Well, there was, like I said, $50,000, over $50,000, and it's gone, and it was in the red.
And it wasn't a
So,
lot of that attorney fee for the
because
Maybe about 10 grand
the
of it.
extra money that we didn't have going in was coming out to pay for the thing. So if we had money from the municipal fees going in, then that would have taken care of it, and it wouldn't have depleted that fund. So, that fund that can be used to buy land and support conservation land, maybe other towns have trails, nice trails on the conservation land.
I wouldn't be one to back this board buying a piece of land. I don't think that that's the right way to do it.
Right.
Totally agree.
But for somebody that is willing to give up a piece of land for conservation, or has a piece of burden land that they can't
Right.
use.
And also,
We have land.
sometimes when people
Right.
donate land to conservation, you might want to have it surveyed.
Right.
You have to pay for that.
Right.
And everything associated with figuring out where the land is to begin with.
So my understanding is the town of Sutton Conservation Commission can take land.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That was the original intent of conservation
Conservation.
commissions back in the 1950s.
If we had the money.
Right.
Well, but how much money is in that account, ballpark right now? Zero?
None. We don't
Zero.
have,
That's
no.
empty. That account's empty?
No, there's about $4,000, but there's gonna be only like 2,500 left in it soon.
So there might
Yes.
be enough to do closing costs on a piece of free land.
But we have to have money in there for to keep going for the rest of the year. because part of Wanda's salary comes out
It
of
should
that.
not come out
It
of it.
should, but that's my point being
It
is.
can be used for
Only the
that.
meetings come out of it.
It should not come out of it.
I had the rules and, I had papers at home, and of course I didn't bring the right one, but it says you can.
Which rules and regulations you referring to?
Not rules and regulations, in the
Which
account.
bylaw? Which account?
I left it at home, unfortunately. I had them all stapled together and underlined in pink, and I left it at home.
Don't worry, we get it.
Okay. I don't know which.
I agree with
Saturday
Bob, though, I
referred
don't think
to,
her
that's
pay
all.
should come out of that account anyway, because we meet more than most boards, we meet twice a month, most boards in the town meet once a month. So if she's getting paid for the meetings out of that town, she's getting paid, we're losing double the money, you know what I mean, as
Work
compared to.
twice as fast.
Twice as fast as compared to other boards.
The other boards don't pay for their help.
Right.
It's all through town salary.
It's all
Right.
town salary. This
Also-
should be town salary.
So what,
as
is
well.
that part of the charter, or how is that set up?
It's, once again, because there's kind of two different things. We are not, in a lot of ways, a town board. So, anyway, I had the thing all underlined for you, Bob, that, you know, where it can pay salaries and things like that. But again, I put everything in nice little folders so I would have it, and I left that out.
And full disclosure, when I first started, Jim Smith, it was laid out with Jim that half of my travel time come out of that bylaw account, and that the amount of time that I spent on like board business and non-application stuff, and it comes out of that
And
account too.
like
You
these
know,
meetings.
the GIS stuff and all that, and this right here. So there's a certain amount of money that comes out of, I send Wanda a separate invoice once a month for administrative services that comes out of that.
And that I could support as well.
Yeah.
I have no problem supporting that at all. Because you're a consultant, you're not a town employee, and you're a paid consultant, that your fee is based on the applicant. In a lot of cases, there is no applicant, so the board has to fund you.
That's right, there's a certain amount of time that I spend here that's not being paid by an application. So that has to be covered.
That's right, so I, if you wanna put that as one of the bullet points, or bulletin points, whatever you wanna call them.
Right.
I have no problem with that.
And Jim's suggestion back then is, it's 2 hours round trip for me. And he says, okay, 1 hour can be taken out of that account, the other hour you have to split up amongst all the others, which is what I've been doing. So, been like that for almost 11 years.
Okay, so we will,
Do we wanna continue this public hearing
yes,
for 2 weeks, or is that not enough time?
I think that should be enough time.
I make a motion to continue the public hearing to discuss proposed rules and regulations for filing fees to October 17th at
At 8 PM.
8 PM. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I didn't read the thing that was in the paper for the filing fees, but I think it's,
Well, is that something you can email to everybody?
well, you want me to read it now?
You wanna read it to get it on record?
The paperwork that you didn't bring tonight, can you email it
Well,
down?
Yeah, I can tell you where to look for it,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can read both of them.
Yeah, I mean,
and-
this is what I didn't read, I'll read that. This was a filing fee notice. The Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018, at 7:45 PM at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Uxbridge Road, Sutton, Mass. The purpose of this hearing is to adopt certain rules and regulations governing the activities of the commission in applying its jurisdictional and regulatory activities pursuant to MGL Chapter 40 and 8C for the Conservation Commission's filing fees. Notice is publicized in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, commonly known as the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Wetlands and Riverfront District Administration Bylaw. So I apologize, I should have read that first.
No, that's the 8 o'clock one.
No, can we discuss it?
Hmm?
Now that you're ready, can we discuss it?
I think we just, I think we just did that backwards.
Now you can read the other one.
Okay, the Sutton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018, at 8 PM at the Sutton Town Hall, 4 Oxford Road, Sutton, Mass. Purpose of this hearing is to adopt certain rules and regulations governing the activities of the commission in applying its jurisdictional and regulatory activities pursuant to MGL Chapter 40 and 8C for the Conservation Commission's filing fees. This notice is publicized in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, commonly known as the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Wetlands and Riverfront District Administration Bylaw. This is to talk about consultant fees.
Okay, so
Would
the
you like
first
me
copy
to
is
stay or
the,
go?
Wait a minute, what?
the first copy is the proposed, the second copy is existing, third copy is the email.
I can stay or go, your choice.
Well, why don't you kind of do a synopsis of what you do and,
Sure. I will bring it up on the screen, so maybe you want to put that up on the screen so the whole public can see. Miscellaneous, consultant fee. Responding. Of course. There we go. No, don't want that. Let me bring up the other one, the old one.
So you have each of what he's bringing up on.
The old and the new?
Yeah, so here's the, I'm gonna do the old. So when I was first being considered for hire in 2007, like you have me now, before that I was working for Steve Zisk, who was in my position, and I was limited to reviewing wetland boundaries for Steve, and he was doing everything else, because he didn't have that expertise. But then Steve left, I moved into the position, and one of the things the commission wanted me to do was to come up with a proposed fee schedule. And that's what I did. And this is what I proposed. First one was a $250 flat fee for building permit review. At first, I thought that I was gonna be asked to go out on routing slips, like other towns do. Come to find out, that's not the way it worked. The commission would get a routing slip, and then they would just ask me to bring up the property on the GIS, and they would make a decision on whether or not an application was required just by looking at the maps and the GIS data overlay. Not the most accurate way to do it, but it's a way to do it, and to this day, I've never done one of these $250 building permit reviews. So what I did is I took it out. So the next thing is that I proposed a increase of $150 for the flat fee for the request for determination of applicability. So as you see it, $300 flat fee right here. And in the new one, I'm proposing it as $450. Okay, $450 flat fee. And for the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, and there's 3 different categories of notices of intent which line up with the same categories in the Wetlands Protection Act, depending on how complex the application is, going from a house addition or a septic system repair all the way to a, commercial development. I've proposed to increase the base fee by $300 for each one. So for category 1, the base fee is $500. Proposing to put that up to $800. Category 2, base fee is $900. Proposing that to be $1,200. Category 3, which is $1,200, proposing to bring that up to $1,500. The $1.50 per linear foot verification of wetland line has not changed. I'm not proposing any kind of change to that. But one thing that I did do was make a note on the new one that the $1.50 per linear foot charge will not be required when the resource area boundary is a retaining wall at the bank of a pond, which is what people are doing anyway. They're voluntarily not paying me or including that in the fee if there's a retaining wall, and I'm not about to say, hey, you gotta pay me that so I can go and look at it and say, yep, you're good. So I agree that I shouldn't be paid for that, and I wanna make it official, if that's the case. The fees have not gone up in almost 11 years. They were in effect in January of 2008. We're now in September of 2018. So almost 11 years of the same fee. Other thing, the last thing that I'm proposing is that all these fees are based on an hourly rate of $85 an hour, which was the average going rate for a consultant back in 2008. Today, it's around $100, $105 an hour is the going rate, which is what I'm proposing to bring it up to, which, you know, comes up to about a $2 raise per year over the last 10 years. That's the synopsis. You know, it's been 10 years without any change, and this seems like the right time to do it, seeing you're looking at all the other fees as well.
But you also do other things like, you write up the order of conditions with the special conditions.
Right, I'll
and-
explain what it is that I do. When I was originally hired, my job was to do pre-screening of all applications, which means read the NOI or whatever application it was, go out in the field, do the inspection, take pictures, come to the meeting, write a report to the commission, come to the meeting, and present my findings, along with bringing this laptop, bring up GIS data as necessary, show the pictures, and present my findings and my opinions. And that was it. In 2012, some things changed. Number one, the commission decided that it would be best for me to draft the orders of conditions, which I think that there's been a big improvement in that, in the clarity of the orders. The second, then I was asked to perform pre-construction meetings, which I think has also been a significant improvement. The number of enforcement orders has gone down exponentially because we have these meetings with the engineer and the contractor and me, and we get everything laid out so everyone's on the same page. Those are the two big time-consuming things that have been added. So what I found is that the reason for the $300 increase is I found that on projects where I suddenly run through all of the money, it's usually within about $300, give or take, which has led to me doing some pro bono work. I have done some pro bono work for the town, including, but not necessarily limited to, review of any municipal project. Like, for example, the most recent one would be the police station. And sometimes when I do go over on a individual application, I haven't felt comfortable going back asking for like $100 or $200. It seems trite, and I don't want to unnecessarily anger people. So I just finished the job, and Wanda has been keeping track whenever I do go over, and to date, she has it right here in front of me that I have $5,446.97 in pro bono work from applications that have gone over what the consultant fee schedule was.
From the beginning of time or this year?
From the beginning.
From the beginning, right? So over 10 years, right? At the same time, I just learned last meeting that there's over $80,000 of unrefunded,
Held.
yeah, funds from the 53G account that I haven't used and just need to be refunded, but they can't be refunded until a certificate of compliance is issued. which is another thing that I've been asked to do. When I was started, I didn't do certificate of compliance inspections, and I didn't draft the certificates of compliance themselves. I'm doing that as well.
So just to be clear, that 80 plus or minus $1,000, that is not your money.
That is, well, it's only my money if I work on that particular project. Most of those projects, I've done 95% of the work. The only thing left to do is a certificate of compliance inspection.
And then those applicants, in some cases, should get a refund from that $80,000 account.
From what's on their budget, whatever the money's in
Their
their budget.
percentage out of that 80,000.
Right, so it's not a slush fund for Brandon.
I think there was a misconception, and I may be wrong, that people thought that $80,000 was your money
Right.
in your pocket.
Only if he goes on that site, each individual site. If he sometimes will send me back an invoice that says, okay, I need this amount, or just refund it.
So there are refunds made. I want this on the record so
I
people
have some
understand.
refunds that I have to do for the next meeting.
So when when we've been tracking down these people for certificates of compliance, if they get their certificate of compliance, then they get their refund if there is any money
owed.
left,
Yeah.
money still in that account.
Off topic, can we add verbiage to the application that if the order condition expires or runs out, that their refund is null and void, and that could go into our wetlands account?
I don't
No.
know if we
I don't think you can do,
Can't do
you can't
that.
do that
It's just
legally.
lost money at that
No,
point,
you
right?
can't do that legally.
Can't.
No,
Once
unfortunately.
once you guys sign that paper for the certificate of compliance and it goes out, I send a sheet with it that says, please send me an email for your refund. I look it up first to see if there's money in there. If
But-
there's money left, they usually send me an email or a note of something, and then I send it back to
Are
them.
there many refunds that go out?
There's been a few, yeah.
And there should be
Been
some more out of that.
5 or 6 since January.
And there should be some more of that 80,000 if people will come in here
Yeah.
for the
I'm personally, I'm very surprised that there's that much.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm
And I-
very
And
interested.
again,
what-
I'm repeating myself, but I'm doing it because I'm on TV and there's people watching, and I think there's a big misconception in the town that people think that $80,000 is in your pocket, and that you're supposed to be buying us all dinner, but you haven't. So I want it on the record that that is actually not your money.
Right.
It's the applicant's money.
Right.
And I think that, and I'm trying to be clear, because I think people need to know that.
Right. In order to get it, they need to reclaim it by submitting for a certificate of compliance, which the Conservation Commission
Has been trying to do.
has been trying to make as easy as possible by eliminating the need for a as-built plan.
Because that's another expense
It's
to the
another,
applicant.
like, it's as much as $2,500 in some cases that they now don't have to pay.
I don't
to a
think I've
surveyor.
ever done one since I've been.
And if you filed under the old bylaw, you still are supposed to do an as-built, but we can kind of waive that. But under the new bylaw, you don't have to do an as-built unless we request one.
Right,
But you need a letter from your engineer.
still need a letter from
And
you.
Right,
I'm
and we-
trying to get letters from the past ones, I mean, we've got 30 years past in some
Right,
of this
and,
stuff.
and if you already have an as-built required by another board, then just submit it.
Especially on the, Board of Health with the septics,
Right.
they can use the as-built, and we've had a couple of those come
So
in.
you and Joyce have been working, trying to get some 4 or 5 out periodically to
We-
get some of this.
Well, we did 3 years back, and then we're waiting till
Now-
those kind of
Right,
quiet down,
I'm
and then
doing
we'll
the
do
next
another.
3 years, I'm ready
Yeah.
to do the next 3 years.
Right, so those are my proposed changes. I think that they're consistent with going rate for consultants in my position in the Commonwealth.
And one other thing, too, is they want you to pay the fees before you go out and do the work. And if you don't get sufficient fees to cover the project, then it's kind of hard to go back and get them afterwards. So, the increase in these fees would be just to increase the money in their pool, which they would get reimbursed if it doesn't get used.
However,
However,
by going from 85 to 105, I think it was, or 110, wasn't it?
105.
105,
Which was actually a recommendation by Dan Maroney.
but that works, I mean, if you do the math, if he spends the same amount of hours, he's spending the same amount of money. So there's not gonna be additional surplus money just because the fees gone
No,
up.
no.
Right. It's a adjustment on what the hourly fee for my kind of expertise is going for today.
Do I have a question?
Yes,
Just so I understand it, when you say $800 base fee, then you bill out of that hourly, so those aren't set fees?
Correct, yeah,
It's just, so, because one of my questions was gonna be, if we're gonna raise the fees, how do we raise the money so that there's appropriate money? So everything gets billed hourly against these retainers.
Right, the reason why we have this fee schedule is because you could, the whole idea is to make the process go faster. We have this fee schedule, you just pay this money right from the beginning, and Brandon can get started and have recommendations right up for the very first meeting, and it'll cut down the number of meetings by at least one, if not two. Because what would happen in the old days is the applicant would come in, present it, and then it would go to a consultant who would then propose a fee, and then at the next meeting, that fee would be accepted by the commission. So you just wasted a whole meeting just getting the fee established. So this is a fee schedule that I think fits into what each application type would cost from beginning to end, more or less, for the whole review on an hourly rate of, used to be 85, now 105.
and we used to,
In past meetings, when I first started 18 years ago, sometimes these people would have to come in for 5 or 6 meetings because there was information needed. Plans weren't right, this wasn't right, that wasn't right. And to me, that was an awful lot for
That's
them
been
to come
cleaned up
to.
just in a few years.
And now, so you're going from 5 or 6 meetings to 1 or 2.
and we used to, as a board, go out and every
Go
other
on site
Saturday, we
visits.
would do site visits. But with Brandon going out and reviewing things and showing the pictures and so forth, we haven't gone out as a board to do site visits. I still like to see things personally, because I'm not as good as Bob at reading plans and so forth. So, and some of you have been out looking at things on your own, but we used to go out as a board, and, you just couldn't deliberate at the site, and you can still do that. You can go out as a group and do site
As
visits.
long as I post it as a meeting. If 3 of you wanna go, I have to post it downstairs.
And
it's
the
easier.
pre-construction meetings have greatly cut down on people
amount of
saying,
trees
oh, I
being
didn't
cut
know,
down.
and doing things, and it's been very, very good doing the pre-construction meetings.
Right, so the number of tasks that I'm doing now, as opposed to when I started, is increased. So there's more work to begin with. One thing I've been doing less of is the reporting. And what I've been doing more of, and I actually think that this is more, has been more effective, is just having a one-on-one relationship with the engineers. And be able to talk to them and email them and call them and to have a more informal relationship, and I think we've been getting a better product, as opposed to me spending an hour or two writing a formal report, sending to them, having them decipher it, and then make the changes. I'm just, it's more on the fly, and I think it's much more effective.
I agree.
You gotta have a personal relationship with the people who are submitting on a regular basis.
Well, we had septic system we approved last week in one meeting. A few years ago, that wasn't happening. It'd be 3, 4 plus meetings to one is point of them coming back in.
Right.
And that shouldn't happen on something as,
Right, when I started, it was like 2, 3 meetings, now it's like 1 or 2.
When I first started, we'd be here, a good night, an early night would be 10:30, 11:15,
I'd be home by 1
yeah.
and have to be back in here at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's like
So just one more question.
long meeting.
So,
Mike.
on the wetland, on that multiplier of $1.50 for the so that you don't do hourly, that you do by a multiplier of a per foot?
Right, so it's what I think the cost would be for each type of application. So let's say notice of intent category 1, a house addition, septic repair. It's gonna be less money, it's gonna be $800, at least usually get around, $800 like minimum, but how much wetland is actually involved? Each site is unique. There could be a little bit of wetland, or there could be wetland all over the place that I have to go out and verify. As part of a notice of intent, you have to verify the wetland line, and then the wetland line could be significantly wrong. Then I have a big battle over the wetland boundary. So that has to be taken into consideration, which is where the $1.50 per linear foot came about. So if there's,
Is Mike, I think Mike's question, and I asked the same question, are you doing that by the foot, or are you doing that by the hour?
I'm doing that also by the hour.
That's what I thought.
Right, so you add $1.50, so that, but then that
Yeah.
gets taken, used up as an hourly rate.
Yeah, that.
So I do think that has been a misunderstood thing in town as well, because I think people think that you charge that,
Oh, and then I just take it?
and you just take it per
No.
foot, it is 500 feet.
No,
So it's good to get clarification sometimes.
yeah, I hope so.
So basically, everything's hourly.
Everything's
You feel
hourly,
that these
but-
fees will cover the applicants, because I looked at some of the bills, and you make considerations, because there was no money, like you said, you don't bill for the extra and go back and be piddly over $100.
Right,
So do you feel these are adequate to cover the cost hourly?
I hope so.
Okay. Well, you'll be
It's-
doing,
it's all
Wanda
an
will
estimate.
continue the list of,
Yeah.
Brandon's.
In 10 years, I'll ask for more. Hopefully, I'll still be around. I like working for the town of Sutton a lot. I really do. I enjoy the people. It's a beautiful town. I'm a Blackstone Valley native myself, so.
so I would ask another question. And I know Joyce has been doing some inspections that help out with cost. And I'm around all the time as well, not to take work from you.
That's fine. It's busy.
If it helps the town, that's why we're all here. I know I would be willing to do some of the things, not all of them. I don't wanna do paperwork. I don't wanna write order of conditions.
You don't.
Site inspections, or I'm not knowledgeable enough to walk a wetland line and say that where the wetland is. So I'm not looking to do that. Would like to go on some of the walks just to, like you
Learn.
said, learn and be more of a part instead of a picture sometimes on some of the bigger
A lot of
projects.
times I need someone to go inspect the erosion controls.
I'm around.
Joyce has been doing that.
Yeah, you do a
because
certificate of
Like,
compliance
Not
Not to take
inspection.
away from Joyce, I mean, if she.
No, no.
But if you're not around, I'm around usually during the day.
Yeah, I have no problems with that at all. It's been very busy. Now, when it slows down, we get into our next
was just saying, I'm all
market
about
correction,
keeping
so to speak.
Yeah, the simple ones I'm comfortable doing, if it's if it's a simple house or, simple septic system or something, doing the certificate of compliance inspections is pretty easy. If it's a more complicated one,
remember, I used to
then
do a
he
few
can do it, but,
So I guess some of these are more,
Kind of
just
get
maybe
to
they're
it.
to Brandon, cause he's doing it all. But is there ways we could cut down on his hours by us as a board? And I'm not looking to overwhelm us with responsibilities, that's not my intent for this comment. It's just to be conscious of cost.
well, again, we could go back to writing it as a conditions, but I don't feel comfortable doing that, and probably
some
no
of
one
them-
else does either, but.
So in a lot of towns, the chair or someone on the commission does write order conditions, that's a practice
Mark
that does
used
go
to
on.
write
No,
them,
no,
but
just,
they're not as
is some of
Not
the
very
easier
common.
order of conditions that are more
No.
boilerplate, is that some of the things we could do? Or
Nah.
should we not
Well,
start
let me
mixing?
give you an example. I'll just pull one randomly here. That was 124 Manchog Road. Order of conditions. There's the
order's the easy one, the special order is where it gets,
the regular order is not exactly
well,
straightforward.
I don't
either.
wanna say easy, but that's the boilerplate form.
Yeah.
I think it's
Should-
what
I
you're
mean,
talking.
right, so like an order of conditions, usually,
You have to, do you know what the applicable public interests are for each resource area? You have to put in all the resource area impacts, buffer zone impacts. We don't have to worry about coastal. Is this a restoration or enhancement project? Is there stream crossings? What else we have? You have to note what special conditions there are, and then you get into the special conditions, and my own, this is my own way that I determined how to write a special condition based on examples from other towns, is we start with the findings of fact, There's an introduction that says who came in, who was representing them, when the public hearing was open, when it was closed, who were the voting conservation commission members, who made the motions, who seconded, all the housekeeping stuff.
Oh, wow.
There's a background on the property, just, property description, brief, and then what is the proposal? What are the wetland resource areas involved under both the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw?
I only have 3 copies of these.
Right. What are the proposed impacts?
What's it in order of
I don't
conditions
need
looks
it.
like?
Yeah. Why was the application approved? Under what auspices? There's a lot of,
On this one here, let's just pick on this. Roughly how long would this one have taken you?
couple hours.
Okay, for the record, I'm gonna go on record.
That's a
I'm not-
single-family house.
I'm not doing that.
85 Gilmore Drive took me 3.5.
The industrial.
The industrial
park
park, right.
Leland Hill Estates was real fun. That was
I'm not qualified,
57.
I don't believe, to do that, first of all.
You have to get these just right in appeal.
None of us are qualified.
Well,
No,
I'm
none of
speaking
us
for
are.
myself, I don't think anyone else is either, but
There are some towns that have got a conservation administrator, which is a profession that's full-time job, just as.
No, some of the towns, the chair still today write the order of conditions.
Yes,
would you wanna write that, Mike?
No, I didn't say I would.
but I think, like
Put it on record.
towns in Western Mass which get 2 notices of intent a year, it's a little different.
Having well-written, tight order of conditions protects the commission in an appeal. And the one that I wrote that was a success was the one on Torrey Road for
Charlotte Kroll
Charlotte Kroll. Because the abutter
appealed it.
appealed it, and we had the on-site meeting, and we pulled out the order of conditions with DEP, and went through it, and went through my rationale, and he went through it too. I spoke my piece, the abutter spoke his piece, and in the end, the DEP decided that the rationale was good rationale and upheld the commission's decision. So this document has to be well-written.
And in 18 years, there's been 3 appeals. Only one went through, and that was 78 Torrey Road.
There's
The
another one
others
coming.
got to DEP and found out it was gonna cost $250 to do the appeal, and they walked away. So,
If I could just speak on this real quick.
Certainly.
I think that the day of the commission's writing all this up is gone, and I certainly don't have the time to do it, never mind the train of thought, or intelligence for that matter. But what I'd like to see come of this, and I have no problem with anybody, I'm a small business person, consultant to me is invaluable. I have a consultant that works for me a lot with DOT stuff. The only thing that I would like to see come of this, if we're going up on an RDA fee, $150, I would like to see something that, sheet of paper that flat out says what people do not have to file an RDA for.
They do not have to file an RDA if they're out of jurisdiction.
Or an in-kind stone wall repair on a lake.
Correct,
Or
yes, that's absolutely
staircase.
right. So that's right in the bylaw, what they don't have to apply for.
Okay,
It's right in the bylaw. It's
maybe we can make it easier for people to understand, though.
So people don't feel like they have to do it and then spend the
Right.
money and said, oh, I shouldn't,
I
I didn't have
think
to.
if we have that in corroboration with the fact that there is no more anonymous complaints, I think that'll cut down
so maybe
a lot
under,
of aggravation with
there should
our
be some kind of
board.
header here that
Says, you could say C for, you could direct them to the place where,
Spelled out.
That's
where it's
fine.
spelled out.
That's fine. Yep, if they can look at this application and say, okay, so I gotta go here and see if I actually need to file it.
Right. Right.
Instead of, why did I spend $450 for nothing?
Right. And,
but then they wouldn't have to file at all.
right, right. So if they go, maybe it says,
I don't think we've had many people
Direct them
file
to
an
it,
error,
yeah.
have we?
I think I personally have seen one that's come in since I've been on the commission that I believe did not have to file. Only one.
Well, the other one that came in recently was the 25 Oakhurst. They were completely outside, but that was a big solar company that just.
Yeah,
But
right.
they chose to.
They
come.
chose
chose
to
to do
They
that.
knew they didn't have to. I'm talking about Joe homeowner, like myself, that $450 is a lot of money. And if they do it in error,
Well, I had a thought with the RDAs. If it's something like on a house or something like that, for a tree, I can't see why if they want to take down a tree, why it would cost them
Well,
$450.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I
I've
completely
never
agree.
charged RDA fees for people who were taking the tree out. You know, they file an RDA because I want to remove a tree. I have never charged for one of those. I
They
just
don't pay the $450.
They don't pay,
Or
they
$300
didn't
or
pay the
whatever.
three.
That's
they-
what I was getting at.
They have never paid that for me. I just cannot justify taking money, because, I mean, anybody could do that.
But should we have what that fee is, black and white? Or is there a fee?
There's a $25 bylaw fee, and that's it.
And that's it for that?
And there's
But-
a $42 filing
Oh,
fee.
$42 ad fee.
Yeah.
Well, we
But-
can't control the ad fee.
No.
Right, that's out of our control.
But maybe
Right,
we
and-
should,
and what I
maybe you
tell
should make two
Wanda-
categories there.
Right, well, what Wanda does is if they do bring a check in for one of those kinds, she just tells them to keep it.
Okay.
All right, turn it back to
Just
them.
just like, don't.
But maybe if it were spelled black and white, it would be easier for
The
people to
hard one
understand.
is the docks, because, you know, they'll come in with the RDA for a dock, and I have to charge what's on here.
Some-
Docs I have been
Still
charging
look
for.
at
And part of the reason sometimes we charge for docks is because docks have been ratted out by neighbors. But we don't charge for docks specifically if they're coming in for something, they're building a new house on a lake. We always say, please add the dock on so you don't have to
And
do it
I
in the
always
future.
tell them that too.
We did that for the,
I tell them,
What
do
Mike's
you have
doing
a
on,
dock, are you gonna add it on?
I just think
Yes,
for somebody like myself that did a lot of my project myself, it's a very expensive thing. So if it's spelled out black and white, what the costs are, and there's no surprises, there's always a surprise if the consultant has to come back out 3 times.
is yours closed out?
I hope, yeah. Yeah, mine's
It
closed.
is.
Mine's closed, yeah.
I could
I checked.
also, I could put in
Very good.
another bullet point in here that
Wait on this one.
Yeah, I know.
I wasn't
is
sure.
not required for, I don't know, individual tree removal projects.
Yeah.
Can you put it like here where the request is,
Yeah, I could,
put it there instead, so that when
I could do that.
show people
I'm trying to keep this to 2 pages though,
Mhm.
Oh,
so
well.
I don't wanna add,
And I'm not trying to take money out of your
Well.
wallet, that's not what it's about, if it's spelled out a little bit better.
Brandon, what were you thinking of this? Immediately going into case, is it something you have a contract that the town renews, or is it?
no, the
No,
way
it's
it works
through
with the
us.
consultant
Okay.
is that, the commission can choose anyone they want, as long as that person is qualified and has no, conflicts of interest.
So if you
What would you
change
think
and put
about
that there, that would
Another
be good.
category.
Another category?
Altogether,
Well, I mean, you've got
like
the
tree and stone wall review or something?
Yeah,
Well,
Just make it a fee.
There's no,
a nominal
Fee
fee,
for that,
yeah.
$100 or $50 or something
Most
like
towns
that.
do that.
$42
I don't even need that.
I'm just trying to, at least.
I don't wanna even charge people $50 for, like, I got a tree that a certified arborist has told me is gonna fall on my house and is a danger. I don't wanna charge $50 for that. I don't wanna charge anything for that. I don't think it's right.
I think it should be spelled out, though, for people, if, you know, the things that are not
so
going to
that
be.
when I hand them
The only-
this, they
the
look
only-
at it and go $400
Yeah.
and walk out of
The
my
only
office.
reason I'm advocating it
Yeah.
is it's one thing to say to them, yeah, you can take the tree down, go ahead. But then I gotta go back and somebody's gotta certify that you put the 3 blueberry bushes in the right place and stuff like that. So I mean, there is paperwork, there's follow-up involved with that somebody has to do. And that I wasn't.
There is meeting time too.
I wasn't
And I-
referring to the, taking the tree down.
Wanda
so
drafts
much
the
as
RDA, I
follow-up
clean it
after.
up and send it back to her. It takes about 15 minutes, tops.
Those are the ones we tend to follow up on. Joyce will say, yeah, they
Yeah,
did plant the 3
yeah.
blueberry bushes
And
or
on
something.
Right.
But that's fine,
our
it's just-
agenda, I keep
I'm-
track
I'm
of
okay
the
with it.
times,
That's fine.
so that
Okay.
he knows what time we spent on certain things,
Let's move on then.
so that
Moving right along.
this goes on
Alright, so
there.
what would you like me to do?
Maybe just on the top of the application, in between fee calculations and RDA, put put a box in there for,
If he's not required for exempt activities.
he's not, yeah, C section,
Section of the bylaw.
there you go.
Yeah, and then it's spelled out.
I'll
Then
also,
it's spelt out, and people can read that.
I'll also put something in there that, like, tree removal where a certified arborist is required, no fee required. You know, those are the.
Because they have to pay for the arbor, so.
Gotta pay for the
Yeah, the pay, and it's usually a danger, so I don't wanna, it seems like, you know, it's predator kinda charge, you know, it doesn't feel right,
On your form,
predatory.
if you can move your heading up, you get too much
Yeah, I can
space
do
there.
that.
Move everything up to fit that in there.
Okay.
You should be able to do that. Same with your second page, you've got the last line on
That's
the
fine.
next page. Move your heading up on the top.
Okay, I'll do that for next time.
My original, like I said, my original comment is I think the days of the I would love to, I think Millbury does their own, don't they, Mike? I would love to have you read through a Millbury order of conditions,
Just for fun?
just for fun.
So I can have a good
Because I
laugh.
can imagine that it's a can of worms.
Well, it used to be a can of worms before I started getting involved here.
Yeah, it was
So I think your service is invaluable.
I have a question, can we make a motion to close this public hearing and then issue this with the changes approved, so we don't have to?
I got a couple more questions.
I'm not making the motion,
Well, I
but
wasn't done yet.
can we do it assuming Bob's questions are answered and Brandon agrees to change his contract, whatever this is?
I'm in no rush, it's okay.
fee schedule.
I'd rather not keep
I've
the
been
thing
waiting
open,
11 years almost.
personally.
Bob,
Yes. I have a couple of quick questions, if I could. This one was good for 10 years. How long is this current one gonna be good for?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'd like to know, just, I mean, if it's a 5-year review or considering it after
Let's
6
let's
or.
let's call it 5.
All right, I mean, I think it's important that.
Yeah,
that
I should
we-
I should probably, you know, ask for a raise a little more often to keep up, you know, instead of doing it all at once, because then it seems like it's a bigger
Yeah, I
change
mean,
than
roughly
usual.
2% increase is what you.
Yeah.
The word, the math came out to, and so,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think it's
When you do
it's
the
a
math.
legitimate question as to how long this is.
Let's say.
we just say revisit in 5 years.
Revisit in 5 years, yeah,
All right,
that's one.
under signature of agreement section. That's a real fine technical thing. It says here that, initial review budget, or what the money's gonna be, how you do it, initial review budget, including written report, one site meeting. Well, I don't like the one site meeting, it's as many site meetings as required.
It has been done before,
I
yeah.
understand, it's just a clerical thing that I'm referring to.
Where is, which paragraph's that one in?
It's in the second paragraph, next to the last sentence.
Under C,
One site
Written
meeting.
report, one site meeting or field visit, and two, this is really, yeah, it's really not that applicable. I mean, it's been, a perfect one would go like that,
I don't disagree with
but
you,
they never do.
I understand.
So you
so,
just,
so take out the one and just put site meetings
Yeah, site meetings,
yeah,
I had to pay for the.
or a field visit,
No, the.
conservation commission, instead of saying one or two, just
yeah.
Meetings,
meetings, okay.
Now, the other thing that may affect
field visits.
your budgets on the first page in particular is, in the past, we've been talking about, and I would like to see you visiting all the open order conditions
I know,
twice a year.
that's a lot of work. That could keep me busy almost full time,
The conditions are open
I know,
3 years.
Yep.
Some projects take 3 years.
I know.
They're inspected once at the beginning and nobody looks at it again every winter. There's a lot of,
Well,
If
that's something we could all do.
Right,
to
but if
look
that's
to
the
see.
case, if I'm and I appreciate the job security that you're offering here, I would if I'm doing 2 inspections a year, I would almost guarantee you that I'm gonna run out of money on every single one and have to ask for more.
didn't I say that's why I had to talk about it before your budgets are situated here? I understand there will
Right.
be some.
I don't wanna be greedy either.
I understand that too. I don't want you to be greedy. I mean, a lot of sites, I could go on and or you or anybody could go on and
Yeah.
inspect the sites in an hour a job.
Right.
All right, and if you're in town, with transportation in an hour and a half for a job in the, you know, particularly in a individual house site, it's less than that.
Right, and I try to do that, I'll be driving down a road and go, oh, yeah, and
Oh, no.
just pull in.
I understand, and I just would like to, I would like to see it more of a structural basis so that
I think that's something that we could all kind of divide up and do.
as long as you wanna take the responsibility
Well, I'll
of
have the,
making sure that you visit every one of these sites twice
Well,
a year.
not me, we could all do it.
Well, it's just
Well, I
like
can
you
add
wanna
that
take
in.
responsibility
So,
of finding
can
out
add that
I don't
in.
think that's a good
It's
idea. I
done.
think we're creating more government, more jobs, more costs. I don't agree with that at all. And I think that neighbors do a good job at policing people. I know for a fact that as a builder in town, the neighbors are the first ones to be ripping me a new one if one little thing goes wrong. I think that if we create more costs to this, we're gonna have more people that try to do it without filing. I think that if we start to police people, show up in their property, you're gonna create even more hardship. I think that the state laws are so strict for people that do damage to wetlands, because that's what we're trying to protect, that most people don't. That would be my opinion.
It states that you need to keep the erosion controls in working order, and that's what Bob is saying, that a lot of people don't do that. But, you know, I
But we're
kind of agree with you that if you go by and you see something not right, stop and, you know, report it.
Certain
and-
sites need more visits.
Yes,
The solar
right.
farm in 146.
oh, absolutely, I've done a dozen.
But a septic
Least.
system on a flat lot.
Right.
Commercial projects,
Septic system on a flat lot, it should be done in
In
a matter
one-
of 2 months.
Right,
Exactly.
and
Job's
done.
done.
Like 21 Uxbridge
Alright.
Road.
Right.
But that would force people to close out those orders.
Oh, yeah. But, you know, small things like that are gonna be done, only
Right away.
one inspection's required, and the final inspection's gonna be 2 months later when it's done.
Can we put a
The
line item
projects-
in there for big projects? Cause I can see what Mike's saying. But if we have another 146 solar
There
farm.
should be site inspections as needed.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
That I
yeah,
would agree to.
yeah,
Site inspections, that, so if you have a problem site, so one thing I've learned, people are creature of habit. Different construction, like, it's not hard to figure out the people that break the rules. It's not. And we as a board can go out and just pay more attention to the projects that we think we have problems. If we get complaints from neighbors, we start to pay more attention to those projects. I just think,
As long as they leave their name.
Right, if it was 2009 and there was no work going on, I probably would have been spending 2 days a week going out and doing those inspections, right? But I'm so busy, I don't have the time to do those, 6 months inspections.
and that money would have to come out of that $4,000,
Uh,
or not?
I
Or
wouldn't,
you'd
I
have to
wouldn't
go
even
up on a
ask
fee.
for
Or
it.
you'd
I
have to
wouldn't
go up
even
in a
ask
fee,
for it.
yeah.
I would just get to the point where it's like $100 and I don't wanna anger people by being trite.
Yeah, we have it in there, so if you see it, then write down the,
I think
Patient
putting in
saying,
that
"Look."
line, site inspections is necessary.
yeah,
And that leaves it open for commission members to do the inspections
Well, we
themselves as
could
well.
also be.
or if we ask you.
Or if you ask me to do it, right?
Have a problem, and we need him to do a site inspection, I think we should have the, like, be able to send Brandon, who's a professional, and understand. I mean, damage, most people, any one of us could probably see if the hay
Well,
bills are right,
for
or
example.
if it's been breached, or.
right about,
He'll
Waddles.
he'll learn eventually.
Yeah, well, hay bills, I'm calling that forever.
All right. Bill,
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to issue a new fee calculation
Fee schedule.
Fee schedule.
Approve the fee.
Approve the fee schedule based on the attached that Juan is gonna stamp in, with the changes as noted of adding a, see the bylaw section for no, things that are no charge.
Require.
And then making the few changes to the last paragraph on the section C, signature of agreement. Am I missing anything?
Just as hourly rate, you had mentioned it, and is it in here?
It's not.
So, should,
I can put it in there if you want.
well,
It's
if we're
it's
agreeing
all-
to a
Good
rate
idea,
increase, so how you bill, I mean.
In that section C,
So
it should
just
be
to-
in there, I think, right?
So how is the billing process work? Like, so we should agree on a rate, Well, I don't think that's so much for Brandon, it's for us as a board.
The above is based on.
105 didn't sound out of character to me, from what I hear.
Based on
Wetland.
$105 is what we discussed, right?
Right.
Right.
All right, I'll put
I think
in.
that should be, I mean, just, you know,
And they'll, yeah, I totally agree. Then it's, someone says, what is this costing me? It's about $105 an hour. It's kind of spelled out. And
oh,
then-
it's $105 an hour for the
Yeah,
consultant.
not kind of, it is $105
Yeah.
an hour.
I think
And
it
that-
should be in, it should be in there, and,
That's this.
Added
Yeah.
into the
Added
paragraph.
into section C of the signature agreement.
And the last thing I'll add is that the 105 is my municipal rate, because Sutton's not the only town I perform peer reviews for. Municipalities, I don't know, it's a different rubric, working for municipalities, as opposed to working for private land developers. My rate, my private sector rate is $150 an hour, so, just to let you know.
Okay.
So make sure you list Sutton on there, so if anyone gets it. And that this is to be reviewed again in a 5-year time period?
Sure.
Second that?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, my question is, when do you want this to take effect?
Oh, I
Immediately.
should have mentioned that.
All right, cause, well, he still has to correct this and fix it, so as soon as he gets it to me, do you wanna do,
that's a good question.
I
So
need
if
to
we
have
haven't been billing
specific-
this new fee, and we get applications come in and he starts
Yeah,
billing,
it's
you're
gonna
gonna be
affect
short,
him.
should you? I'm
Start-
just saying, just like you had said, you
Well,
don't
once
wanna,
that's complete,
Not on
new
anything that's
applicants
already out.
going forward.
Yeah, new applicants,
Yeah,
not,
you
not
can't
any
go back on
existing.
someone who's.
No.
Yeah,
So
right.
just do it as all new
do you want?
applications going forward.
it's gonna
tonight.
get out,
Because I have an
Wanda has to
application
disseminate
coming in
it to the,
tomorrow.
to the engineers.
Right.
How about all applications going forward starting as of November
And
1st?
this needs to go
Yeah,
online.
that makes sense.
But
Right, we'll
that
put-
way it gives us a couple weeks to
Yeah.
get it online, and we're not doing it mid.
Right.
But
So you're
30
gonna
days,
make
wanna
a
do 30,
motion?
because normally,
Well,
just with real
November.
estate, you always give somebody 30 days when you raise their rent.
That's
No rush,
November-
I've been
No,
waiting.
November first
just
would
so
be
it's-
about that.
Well, you don't want people coming in and have all the checks and filing, and
November
then
1st,
resale, the
that's
fees all changed. and-
November 1st?
That is about 30
Yeah,
days.
yeah, absolutely, that sounds great.
Okay, you can make a
Cause
motion.
I have to,
Make a
what I do
motion
is I
that
do it here.
These fees only, the increase only be charged to new applications starting as of the November 1st of 2018.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I thank you for continuing to trust me with important business.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Can we do that? Let's see,
I believe so.
have we done everything? Okay, we can do that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good.